Councillor Kevin Humphreys. Councillor Johnston. Apologies, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Kitt. Councillor Leddy. Apologies, Councillors Maguire and McCamley. Councillor McDonough.
Here.
Councillor Mulligan.
Here.
Apologies, Councillor Mulville. Councillor Murphy.
Here.
Apologies from Councillor Newman. Councillor O'Brien. Councillor O'Leary.
Here.
Apologies, Councillor Onumera. Councillor Quinlan. Councillor Quinn. Councillor Ryan. Councillor Sheehan. Councillor Shovlin. Councillor Smith. Councillor Thormy. Councillor Troy. Councillor Walsh.
County Council meeting 10th of February 2025. All mobile phones should be on silent or switched off for the duration of the meeting. Please note that this meeting is being webcast. All members, please remember to switch off your microphone when you finish speaking. All members are reminded that the chamber is a non-smoking vaping area. Standing orders will apply to all aspects of the meeting. Councillors are reminded of the provisions of Standing Order number 92, that all members are bound to act in accordance with the ethics framework and code of conduct for local authority members, to cooperate with the orderly conduct of meetings, the direction of the Mayor, and in a manner that is respectful of colleagues. Members have been circulated with the agenda for today's meeting, and any member forming the view that they have a conflict of interest in the matters subject to today's agenda should now disclose the same. Councillors are also reminded of the provisions of Standing Order number 93 that members must bear in mind that discussions at council meetings are not privileged. No member may make false statements, impute improper motives, or use offensive or unbecoming words in reference to any member of the council, employee of the council, or any other person. Any member having made such statements or used such objectionable words, not explaining or retracting same or offering apologies for the use thereof, when requested by the Mayor to do so, shall be called upon by the Mayor to withdraw from the meeting. Members making any such statements or comments may find themselves personally liable for them. 1. Confirmation and reaffirmation of the minutes of council meeting held on Monday, the 13th of January 2025. Proposed. Sorry.
On your what you read out there.
Yeah.
You see, there might be a misinterpretation of the standing order, so if you could just clarify it for me. You say if somebody uses offensive language. I notice a number of motions that have come before us where if I was in the debate, it'd be very fair description to say that is a racist or that is objectionable to me. And so therefore that could be interpreted as being a criticism of the person who brought the motion, but it's also fair debate. I presume that wouldn't apply, would it?
So the matter is clear. Any member having made such statements or used objectionable words and not explaining or retracting the same or offering apologies. So, and the adjudicator is the Mayor or the Chair in relation to any outcome of a debate.
And I missed that. Thank you. Sorry.
So item 2, nominations. Appointment of one member to the chair of the Housing Strategic Policy Committee. For the minutes, sorry. We need a proposer and a seconder for the minutes. Proposed, Councillor Humphreys. Seconded, Councillor Walsh. Agreed? Agreed. Item number 2, nominations. Appointment of one member to the chair of the Housing Strategic Policy Committee following the election of Robert O'Donoghue to the 34th Dáil, November 2024. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you. Proposed, Councillor Brendan Ryan.
Second, Councillor Humphreys. No other nominations. So, election of Councillor Brendan Ryan is agreed. Councillor Ryan has asked to have a brief moment to speak. I'm going to allow him the opportunity to do so.
Colleagues, members and colleagues, you know, for supporting me, at least not opposing my candidature. although it's custom and practice for the party to do it the way we're doing it today, it is open to anybody to, to propose an alternative, and that didn't happen. I'm currently on the Housing SPC. It was my first choice. It was the only one I really wanted. I'm happy to take the chair once the vacancy had arisen. I have a long time interest in housing from my time in the Oireachtas. I was on the Special Oireachtas Committee in 2016, which went on for some time. I'm looking forward to the work ahead, working with Mr. Carroll and his team, working with other councillors on the SPC, working with other outside bodies who are on the SPC, hoping to chair a relevant SPC, an effective SPC, with a work programme that's relevant to the times, and a work programme that hopefully all of the members here are happy with. So thanks very much to all. Look forward to the time ahead.
Thanks, Councillor Ryan. Questions number 3 through to 16 proposed. Seconded, Councillor O'Brien. Report of committees. A, the report of the Blanchardstown, Mulhuddard, Castleknock, Ongar Services B Area Committee meeting held on Tuesday the 14th of January 2025. Proposed, Councillor Dennison. Seconded, Councillor Shovlin. Item B, report of the Howth Malahide Services B Area Committee meeting held on Wednesday the 15th of January 2025. Proposed, Councillor Tormey. Seconded, Councillor O'Brien. Item C, report of the Balbriggan Rushlow Sword Services B Area Committee held on Thursday the 16th of January 2025. Proposed, Councillor Quinn. Seconded, Councillor Murphy. Item D, report of the Corporate Policy Group CPG meeting held on Tuesday the 4th of February 2025. Proposed. Seconder. Seconded, Councillor Dennison. Agreed. E, report of Blanchardstown, Mulhuddard, Castleknock, Ongar Services B Area Committee held on Thursday the 6th of February 2025. Proposed, Councillor Dennison. Seconded, Councillor Walsh. Agreed. Item 18, financial matters. Now, item 19, proposed disposal of properties. A, notice of proposed disposal of land adjacent to number 1 Haystown Rush, County Dublin, to Thomas Kerwin. Proposed, Councillor Dockrell. Seconded, Councillor O'Leary. Agreed? Agreed. Item B, notice of proposed grant of permanent way leave at Barrack Lane, Lusk, County Dublin, to Ishka Aaron. Proposed. Seconded, Councillor O'Leary. Agreed. Declaration of roads. Item 20A, Hamilton Park, Diswellstown Road, Diswellstown, Dublin 15. Proposed, Councillor Walsh. Seconded, Councillor Shovlin. Item B, Cruise Park, The Ward, Tyrrellstown, Dublin 15. Councillor Anafee. Seconded, Councillor Dennison. Agreed? Agreed. Item 21, Public Art Policy.
Mayor, if I might just come in just by way of introduction, members before you today is a draft public art policy that's aiming to guide the delivery of public art in the county over the next number of years. Policy has been through the Community and Culture SPC and is recommended by them and was agreed for recommendation to you by the Corporate Policy Group at its meeting last Monday. To introduce for new members, in case you don't know, we're joined by Sarah O'Neill, the County Arts Officer, and Caroline Cowley, the Public Art Coordinator, who will give you a presentation on the content of the policy. Thanks.
Thank you, John. So this evening, I'd just like to begin by talking to you about the national context, which has informed Fingal's new policy. So in 2022, we saw the establishment of the National Percent for Art Committee, which was an interdepartmental and interagency group convened by the Department of Tourism, Culture, Arts, Gaeltacht, Sport and Media to consult and devise a new whole-of-government policy framework to implement the Percent for Art scheme. This has resulted in an all-government Percent for Art policy entitled Public Art in Ireland 2024 to 2028. So this policy seeks to streamline funding opportunities across all government departments and to maximise the potential for commissioning artists within a range of contexts eligible for national capital spend. The policy sets out an alignment to Project 2040, where a predicted spend of over 103.9 million could be available for commissioning public art. The policy also recognises the experience of local authorities as seasoned commissioners, and the Arts Council have indicated that a greater reporting mechanism will be required on the implementation of the schemes locally. One of the recommendations from the policy is the creation of a public art unit, which will sit within the Arts Council and report into the Project Ireland 2040 Delivery Board and then into Cabinet. So this new leadership, governance and implementation structures will support government to define and implement a clear, informed, long-term policy-led approach for the integration of the scheme into wider policy frameworks to maximise potential for artists, people and place. And there's huge opportunity for Fingal, as we are the largest commissioners of public art in the country. So I'm going to hand over to Caroline Cowley, who has worked tirelessly for the last 20 years commissioning the best public art programme in the country, and I can say that hand on heart. And Caroline is going to take us through the context for Fingal's policy, the consultation and feedback for the development of our policy, key developments, and most importantly, how we're going to achieve success. Continued success, actually, I should say.
Thank you, everyone. So the Fingal policy context is interesting in that we've had nearly 3 decades of public art in Fingal. Not, the 20 years when I had started is this year. And you can read that in the policy, the history of all of the public art projects that have been commissioned in Fingal and the breadth of art form and location, I think, that they reflect. What it does reflect as well, and what this new policy has to reflect, is infrastructural changes and larger scale policy changes, where we have 3 strands for funding public art in Fingal. So we have the Percent for Art scheme, which is attached to capital programmes throughout the county, specifically and more commonly with housing, where a percentage of a capital programme budget can be earmarked for public art for that area. We have our larger scale programmes of work in Fingal. We have our strategic infrastructure programme, and for example, key sites like Key Street and Public Realm and Swords and SCQ all have an opportunity to commission art within their programmes of work. And then interestingly, since the last development plan, we've had that condition that requires private developers in both commercial and residential contexts to commission and to go forth with us and commission public art for those particular locations. And I suppose when that went into the development plan, we could have never known the sort of breadth and the sort of acceleration of development that Fingal have had since then, in terms of commercial properties specifically, and obviously housing more recently. So the context of the policy was a need to strengthen and streamline procedures and develop a strong policy framework so that all of our departments in the council can begin to communicate what, how and why we want to commission public art across all of our capital programmes and all of our work, both public and with our private developers. So with that, as a working towards how we feel about public art in Ireland, or in Fingal, we were looking at our own vision. So our vision for public art in Fingal is based on our 3 decades of experience in the field and what we've seen as its impact in reality. So public art brings people together and inspires a new appreciation of our communities and of Fingal as an ambitious, imaginative, compassionate county and a great place to live, work and visit. And our purpose for this, our purpose and why we do public art, is the purpose of public art in Fingal is to explore and celebrate the communities and places of Fingal enriching an appreciation of our county and of each other in thoughtful and extraordinary new ways. We have been working on our policy document alongside the Arts Council's proposed new document, and so we were sort of a little bit more ahead than them. But their definition for public art does actually reiterate that public art covers all art forms and engages with audiences and communities in a variety of ways, and often opens up possibilities for access to and participation in the arts. And there's just a quote on how public art changes and evolves over time. And so the definition of it is wide, inclusive, encouraging work across scales, durations, and media. Ambitious public art projects deliver visual and experiential impact, permanent and temporary, reframing and understanding of a people, place, and time. The unique character of an ambitious public art project often gives status to a place, and depending on the nature of the artwork, can develop an experience and environment that is very people-centred. So that's the Arts Council's definition of public art. So with our consultation and feedback, we coordinated sessions featuring representatives from our own departments across planning, operations, community, architects, my own department, EETCD, heritage, planning, housing, and strategic infrastructure. And all of these departments have had an experience where public art is requested or expected. And it sort of began to allow us to define what we mean when we talk about public art and where it sits specifically within the Fingal capital programmes of work. We acknowledged that Fingal's strength over the years was placing the very best of professional artists with our communities, and it provides these new opportunities for telling new stories about who we are and celebrate a county in a way that opens up more scope for placemaking, tourism, and that sense of belonging. The gaps in our increased development and delivery of public art over our 3 decades allowed us to reflect how we could pool funds better, engage communities more effectively, and provide more strategic opportunities among our own teams to programme public art more extensively across the county. So the key policy developments within this policy that you have in your files is really under a couple of key terms. So to govern, so to identify and convene a designated public art steering group and required working groups to deliver and develop a coordinated planning for public art across all our capital programmes and schemes. How we fund it through the Percent for Art scheme, through our strategic capital programmes of work, and through planning compliance where contributions may be made in lieu of public art in the case of private and commercial developments, so that artwork can live not in the business park or the data centre, but more in the centre of our communities. We want to streamline information on how planning requirements are rolled out to the public for public's information for the Commission of Public Art, including a community request form where works for specific areas can be considered in line with our overall strategic plan. We will manage public art they'll be listed under our new collections policy, which will include its maintenance, its documentation, and its communication of its existing work across the county. And we will endeavour to align the Fingal County Council's key policy areas in climate, in heritage, EDI standards, and our development plan. So the document which we have created really depends, success depends on the cooperation across budget holders and departments of your approval here, the dedicated participation of representative staff and members of steering and working groups, and really the development of a public art strategy which will include projected opportunities and mapping of public art in Fingal. It will also include a communication strategy that will include a signage county-wide for our existing works, and then an ambition to deliver on the scope of the funding available in all art forms over a 3-year period. And this 3-year strategy will be brought to the members for approval, and there'll be areas listed within that area or within that strategy to where we will focus attention. And really just to say, it's a huge opportunity for art and for artists to flourish with communities in Fingal, and we will continue to lead by example into the next decade after following this. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor O'Brien.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks for the presentation. We had a good discussion at the CPG around this, so I won't go over the items I raised there directly with Mr. Quinlivan, but I just wanted to kind of commend the Arts Office for all the work over the years. Certainly, Fingal County Council can be very proud of the work that you've all been involved in, and that fact that Fingal is the largest commissioner of public art in the state is something you guys can be really, really proud of. So thanks for everything over the years. Well done.
Thank you.
Councillor Leddy.
Thanks. Yeah, look, Councillor O'Brien really beat me to it, I suppose, but I found that a very interesting presentation. That is an astonishing statistic, that Fingal is the biggest commissioner of public art in the country. I suppose I shouldn't be too surprised. I was in Howth at the weekend and St. Catherine's Park, and I saw dozens of examples of it. I'm just a little bit unclear, if I may, because I'm not on the SPC, at what stage this is at, because it talks about steering groups that members will be on. I have never been invited to such a thing. I'd love to be, but I'm just not sure where we are with that. But I do think the members should have a fairly unique role in this. We know our communities as well as anybody, and you know, personally, I'd like to be involved, and I'm sure many other people would too. Thanks.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah.
Your mic isn't on there, Councillor Hopkins.
It was on. It's green. Oh, it's supposed to be red.
Sorry, yeah. I would just want to welcome the report, and specifically want to welcome the fact that we're going to be moving art out of the data centres and the industrial estates, because I personally would like to see more public art in public spaces. I think that's really important. I think Skerries specifically is really, really good. I would pick that as the place that has the best art in the county, and I think probably that's because it's the permanent visible art, as opposed to all of the money we spend on the other arts, which is always really valuable as well, but it's, you know, it's the music and dance and stuff, and it's not permanent. So I really welcome seeing this. I think 103 million over the course of the next 10 or 15 years. You know, to some people that might seem like we could be spending that money elsewhere, but I just think we mustn't forget the importance of art in terms of placemaking, and all of the other positive things that it brings. So I'd love to, and also just to mention the community request form. I think that's brilliant, because it is one thing that people have continuously asked me for. Thank you.
Councillor Tormey.
Thank you very much for the presentation, and it is very exciting looking forward, and it is so important, as has been said, in terms of placemaking, making things look good, supporting our artists. My one thing, and I don't know if it's for this or if it's something that you've reflected on, but the opportunity to try and tidy up some of the mess that's there as well, in terms of graffiti on the sides of buildings. So maybe looking at supporting street artists. I know in Bayside, there's like murals on a lot of the walls, and it looks good. And I think that, particularly along the Dart line, where you've got the sides of industrial estates to it, I think there's an opportunity to maybe look at supporting street artists to tidy up really heavily graffitied areas, to try and do something to enhance areas to look a lot better. Thank you very much.
Councillor Hannafy.
Thank you, and I really want to thank you for the presentation and the report. It's wonderful. This is just a local issue which I raised at our local area meeting. It's something I'd like to keep in the spotlight. It's regarding mural street art for the underpass in Mulhuddard. It's something, as I said, that I'd really like to keep in the spotlight. The project, this is which the Blanchardstown Centre for Independent Living have been talking about for a long time now, to have a mural street art themed around disability. And as I said before, it would be great for those in the arts office or whoever to work with the Blanchardstown Centre of Independent Living from the conception to the completion of design and the works. Thank you.
Councillor Walsh.
Yeah, and thanks very much for the presentation. And I think I was there for the discussion at the SPC, and I think it's, it's really a testimony to the fantastic work that Caroline and the others in the team have done. And I know particularly there's been, I've personally seen evidence of the excellent work that's been done in ensuring that where there is large-scale kind of retail development, that a piece of public art is provided. I think that's really positive. I suppose the only question I have relates to, and this may or may not be for the art team as such, but in terms of I know there's a Dublin Canvas scheme which runs from time to time for the painting of utility boxes. I'm wondering if what kind of input Fingal has into that scheme, and is there an opportunity perhaps for a more flexible approach where local artists would get to input into Dublin Canvas? And perhaps that happens already. I'm not aware of it. If so, that's great. But just some of the feedback I've got is that Dublin Canvas does good work, but often there isn't any local input. So I'd just be interested to get your view on that.
Okay, I'll invite Neil to come back in.
Thank you everyone for your positive feedback. Councillor Ted Leddy, just the stage that we're at the moment is just literally at this policy stage. So we've developed the policy for adoption today, and after that we'll be going forward with our strategy for public art in Fingal, which will include steering group and local groups, and it will be at that point that we will be able to initiate contact with the members in the local areas when we start to map out what areas of priority we're looking to commission within. So you're not late to the table with that at all. Thank you. Councillor Hopkins, thank you for your comments. And also just the 103 million would relate to the national programme. So just to limit expectation in Fingal, we will do our best. And that the community request form will hopefully benefit your community as well, for people who have a site or they have an idea or they want to kind of fulfil something for their area. Councillor Tormey around the street artists and the graffiti. Now, graffiti specifically wouldn't be the public art programme, whether it would be more. Our operations team would probably work hard to clear graffiti, but we'll certainly include that as part of our strategy. If we have a call out for street artists specifically, they may be able to add life to those kind of disused spaces or spaces that need attention. That would be the plan. Councillor Walsh, we do run a very extensive Dublin Canvas call out actually every year. We work with Dublin Canvas quite closely. Now local artists are invited to come up with ideas, and local communities then, if anybody in their local area has identified a box that needs attention or one that they think would be a good one to kind of to use, there is specific criteria for all those boxes because it has to have enough space to set up and walk around, and there is some health and safety things with that. But we call out every year in April, so there'll be a call to communities and there'll be a call to artists in the community to get involved and put in submissions for the Dublin Canvas programme, and we try and spread as much as we can across the county. Oh yeah, thank you, Councillor Hanafi. I know we spoke on the last SPC, and yes, we will consider all the kind of partnerships that might be possible under our public art strategy in the future. So yeah. Have I answered everyone? Is that everyone?
So kind of a proposer if there's no other questions. Proposed Councillor Leddy. Seconded Councillor Hopkins. Agreed. It's come to my attention that there might be a perception of a conflict of interest for me on the next item. I should have declared it, but it hadn't kind of come to my attention. I looked into some of the detail. So I'm going to withdraw for the next item and ask that Councillor Ryan would take the chair. Okay, thanks. I go, I need to declare what the conflict of interest, otherwise it's been out of order, is that somebody whose family related to me is one of the proposed grant recipients, but I wasn't aware of that until I looked at just now the list, so I can't participate. Thanks.
Okay, colleagues, next item is item 22, Arts Act Grant Scheme. Okay, 23. Item number 23, Fingal Event Strategy 2025 Programme Festival Events Funding Scheme. Is there some action? Sorry. Okay.
That was quick. Thanks. Item 23, Mr. Quinlan.
Yeah, just by way of introduction, as if it's needed, Mr. Barnes is our events manager, and before you, he's going to give you a presentation on a draft strategy that will guide him in his delivery of the events programme over the next number of years. Again, policy has been recommended by the Economic SPC and was with the CPG last week, who have also recommended it to you for adoption. Mr. Barnes.
Thank you, John. Mayor, members, the event strategy basically came out of, once we returned from COVID, we realised, hang on, everybody's going to events, and it really got busy. So we decided at that time it's probably time to review what the events office should be doing and how to maximise what we have within the overall offering that the events office and the EETCD department has done Fingal. With that in mind, we took probably more lengthy than it needed to be, but we wanted to review as many events as we could, and we reviewed and exit surveyed events from the hundreds of people up to the 80,000 people that would attend Flavours over the weekend, and we looked and we spoke to them. So we looked at St. Patrick's Day, and we spoke about, we asked many questions that helped formulate this strategy, from the participants to the attendees to sponsors, etc., etc. And then what came out of it is pretty much the event strategy that was designed and built in-house, very much heavily involved with my colleague Rory Scott here from the events office, supervised by Declan Power, the senior executive officer, and overseen by John Quinlivan, the director of services. So I just want to run through a quick few slides of what it was. So we have a draft there. We went to the audience, we spoke to the audience, and we asked particular questions. This will be circulated, which are only a very sharp synopsis of what it was. And within the overall audiences, they came back with what they wanted, how to maximise it. Basically, we've 3 or 4 elements of the events. We've got what we call our funding events, which is coming up later. Every year we announce a range of funding that we fund directly at the events. We also offer advice and guidance with events, and then what we call a DBO event, which is like Flavours, which is a design, build and operate our own event, bringing in specialists where we need to bring them in. You will see that was the event control space at the top there where Anne-Marie and the former Mayor Henchy, and that's me with the hat called event director. With my back to the little pussycat on my lap, stroking it like Brofield, but there you go. And then we move on to what ultimately came out of the events was to ask members, we asked the audience what they want. We look at the events. You'll see one of the concerts there. We pretty much save the operations department every year with the concerts when we work with them.
Objections sustained.
I think Director Daly has to declare her interest and leave the room for a bit. And then we just kind of come back with our purpose and what our vision is. Now, without reading through every slide, basically the strategy was presented, as John mentioned, SPC went to the corporate policy group, and part of the event unit, we do a checklist. We have several funds, several strands for our funding scheme. Our funding scheme amounts to in excess of $500,000, and we are kind of collaborating very closely with the communications unit and getting the messaging out there. Again, a few pages from the strategy. It's a bigger document than that. I just can't do it justice here, but that's the strategy as we are now, Mayor.
If there's no speakers, I'll propose. Oh, sorry, Councillor Leddy.
Just briefly want to thank Paul and his team because, as he knows, I came up with a concept about 3 years ago for a festival in Castleknock Village, and if it hadn't been for the support, encouragement, and indeed advice of his whole team, it never would have got off the ground. And it's gotten bigger and bigger, and indeed the funding has matched that. So I just want to say thanks very much to Paul and his team.
Councillor Walsh.
Yeah, thanks, Paul, for the presentation. And I'd like to thank Paul and Rory, the rest of the team, particularly for the work around the Bridget, the St. Bridget's Day events. I discussed with Paul and Rory 2 years ago bringing Bridget's Day events to Dublin 15, and particularly having a concert in Blanchardstown. That has now happened 2 years running in association with the Blanchardstown Tidy Towns. It's been hugely successful, and the support and work of the events team has been essential to that. And also agree with Paul that, you know, given the number of events that are being run now, it is very important to review them and see where things went well and where we can improve as well. But I want to thank the team for all of their work.
Councillor Hopkins.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to thank Paul and the team. Events bring us joy, and we need joy more than ever. So thank you, and keep up the good work.
Councillor Healy.
Good Kerlik, and I'd like to thank Paul for the presentation and congratulate the events team for their work. One of the big issues, which is not directly within the events team responsibility, but has possibly one of the biggest impacts on the success or failure of the events, is the management of the transport to and from events. And I'd like to see that covered maybe in a separate document, because it hasn't been really gotten to grips with here. And a lot of the time it's got to do not just with us, but with our engagement with the public transport providers and the NTA. And I feel that we're let down by a public transport system which should be able to cope with the large numbers of people travelling to our events and facilitate them getting there by public transport. And of course we know that if they don't get there by public transport but try to drive, that nobody gets anywhere. And it hasn't really been covered in this strategy, and I'm just wondering, can we prioritise it in terms of engaging with those agencies for the next year? Thanks very much.
Councillor Quinn.
I just want to thank Paul and his team, which are, people may think he's got a large team, but the people on the street can see there's only a small amount of people doing a lot of work, and we all know that here in Fingal County Council, so we appreciate that the work that you do. Just in relation to Flavours of Fingal, personally I think it's a fantastic festival. It's a credit to us in Fingal, but there is just one issue I would have around it. It's located in one place, and there is transport issues, as Councillor Healy has said. There is some headaches every year in regards to transport and getting the people of Fingal into the site. So, you know, I like the idea of festivals around the county as well, because there is some benefit in that as well. Thank you very much.
Mr. Barnes, if you want to come back.
Yeah, listen, councillors, I said thanks very much. I'll extend it on to the team, and you're right, a small team, but we believe we get it across. One of the main purposes of strategy is to enable us to spend more time empowering, capacity building, smaller events to help them with. We're looking at training from safety to sponsorship, commerce, just to try and help protect the events and legacy some of them as they go along. Councillor Healy, you're absolutely right. There is a challenge amongst all events countrywide when it comes to transport and how we get people in and out. There is, through our licensed events under the Planning Act, there is a consultation and there is a consultation with the prescribed bodies, which are the blue light agencies, and then the statutory, the other stakeholders such as NTA. As Director Daly will tell you as well, that process can be challenging sometimes, but it's within the Planning and Development Act as amended, that we'd have to consult and we'd have to work with those groups. And then a fuller event plan specific to the site is designed up with those, so with that matter, including transport and other elements included within it. We have, one of the good things is that we did really do well last year on flavours and moving people by train. That number doubled, and getting people out of their cars and into buses that we laid on. That also worked with pre-booking, etc., etc. And look, we'll continue to challenge ourselves. One of the big challenges is getting people to cycle there and convincing them there's a reason and there's a good way to cycle there. For example, Maritime and Howth is the perfect example of how to get people to cycle there. And we know our numbers go up incrementally over the world. But Councillor Quinn and Flavours, yeah, it's in one place. There are transportation issues, but 80,000 people coming onto a peninsula is always going to present some challenges. We think we've more or less addressed them in the fact that we take control of the Liston Hall Junction and we just kill all the lights and manage it that way. But you're coming onto a peninsula, there's always going to be delays.
So I'll propose the event strategy. Seconded Councillor Walsh. Agreed? Agreed. Item number 24, the 2-year progress report.
Sorry, Mayor, there's two. There's a B and C.
Oh, see, 3C, apologies.
B and C. So just Mayor, on B is the events programme.
Oh, sorry, apologies, we did number A. So item 23, number B, the events programme.
Yeah. Members, the events programme is set out for you there, as it has been in other years. These are the major events that are planned, and there will be other events that arise during the course of the year. Councillor Quinn mentioned flavours, and members will remember back at budget time there was questions asked around the cost of flavours. And we gave a commitment to go away and have a look at flavours and to come back, and we did that in a discussion with the CPG the other night, where it was considered best to proceed with flavours this year and to have a full examination of Flavours of Fingal and potential other events through the SPC over the course of this year. So that's what we will do, and we'll work through that over the course of the next number of months and come back to members with a more full assessment. I suppose worth flagging to you, as I did at budget time, the increase in the events budget was in relation to the supports to the community events and the community festivals, as Mr. Barnes has said already, with the aim of providing more support and more empowerment to those communities. There is a substantial increase in the cost of business of doing events, and it is, we will try to make sure that it's not evident in the quality of the events this year, but just be aware, members, that there is that substantial increase, and we will be working through this event programme and keeping you abreast of developments as we go. So, members, that programme is for noting at the moment. We did circulate a document to you last year. We'll circulate something similar this year, but the programme will evolve as we continue throughout the year.
Is that noted? Sorry, Councillor Butler, apologies.
Oh, no, just to say thanks. It is an excellent list of events. Just with regards to Flavours of Fingal, I'm glad to hear that, because I'm a big fan for it continuing as is. Like fair play to you all as well, that fireworks event in Howth on New Year's Eve was great. I think the free bus over from Swords was brilliant as well. There weren't many of us on it, but maybe that's as much our fault as well to get that word out to people, know it's there, hopefully for next year. Just with thinking about that though, with regards to flavours, like that New Year's Eve event, obviously we're working with Tourism Ireland, or part of a bigger picture with regards to we're helping them host that event. Like Flavours of Fingal is massive, and the fact that it is so big, is there anywhere that maybe Tourism Ireland could come into it as well, or someone like that to say, oh, hang on a minute, we have something here that's almost getting up as good as the Ploughing Festival or whatever, they need to jump in and and back it as well. Just if there's any other resources out there we can get that can pump in money to Flavours of Fingal. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Butler.
I suppose, Mayor, it's a question. It did come up in the discussion with the CPG, but I think at the budget meeting I referenced a drive to get sponsorship from local business and bigger business around the county and beyond to help fund some of these events. The model that we have used, particularly after COVID, is that we have been more and more directly providing the events, and we need to examine that model. And like I said, we're going to examine the whole operation of Flavours of Fingal and how it's funded. Certainly we'll be talking to the likes of Falch Ireland and others to see if their participation or funding might be available. But we'll work through that over the course of the next number of months and come back to members.
Is that noted? Noted. Okay, agreed. Item 23C, the Festival Events Funding Scheme 2025.
Councillors, just for your information, we have produced. We have had 107 applications in, and 101 will receive funding, which I think is our best yet. The list will be, if not as already, will be available to you, and it amounts to kind of a fairly decent spread across the county with a very extensive list of different types of events covering all genres. It took us a while to review and assess 107 applications because our criteria is very strict. You must meet the criteria in which to enable you to receive our funding. So I won't go through each one of them because it's 101, and you'll be grateful to hear that. But it's there on the list for approval. Total value of €5,225, which €525,000. Sorry, I was thinking of my overtime claim.
Councillor Ryan.
Very much, Mayor. Look, some of the questions we get, when this list goes out is kind of, as a group, we asked for 6, the maximum or whatever. Is that may be the max, but we only got 2. I know it's the budget divided by 101, but these are the type of questions that sometimes come up. Similar event, it seems, got maybe 1,000 or 2,000 more than this group got. So in a general way, Paul, can you just give us a top line of how you approach that? And basically, in terms of the 6 that didn't make it, what kind of things prevent people from making the cut? Thank you.
Mr. Burns.
The easy bit is the 6 that didn't make the cut. We had 2 duplicate applications, one from outside Fingal, and blank applications that didn't come in. Now, we don't just ignore the blank applications. We go and we engage with the group to say, listen, how can we help you make the application better? It's very tough to sit down and make the choice. So we kind of do have our criteria. Once the groups meet the criteria, and if a group hasn't met the criteria, and there's been a few, we go to them before the closure of the date to help them then, talk to them and work with them. That's within the strategy that we hope that you've approved now, that will give us more time to work with these groups to get them to that point. Now, how we make the decision about whether one group gets €1,000, another gets €2,000, we factor in the attendance, we factor in their ability to raise money themselves, we factor in if it's been receiving funding for 5 years. We think we want to help new groups, we want to do. So there are a number of factors. It's done by officials within the events office who have the experience of running the event. So we keep it kind of in a tight group. We consult with our colleagues that do other funding, such as arts, sports, community. We talk to everybody about it. Some of the groups that are in this, there's 1 or 2 that didn't meet it that would have got referred to the arts office or the community section, which is more relevant to their fund. I'm not sure, Councillor Ryan, if that answers you, but it's not something I can give you a precise answer, but that's how we would get into it. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Is that for noting or proposal? I'll propose that. Seconder. Seconded, Councillor Shovlin. Agreed? Agreed. Thanks. Item number 24, the two-year progress report, Fingal Development Plan 2023 to 2029. Is this Mr. McAleese?
Thanks, Mayor. Senior Planner Patricia Cadigan just has a very short presentation.
Thank you, members. You will have been furnished with the report recently for the two-year progress report on the Fingal Development Plan, and this is just a very brief presentation to you on that. The legislative background in relation to the progress report is that under Section 15 of the Planning and Development Act, as amended, states that 15.1, it shall be the duty of the Planning Authority to take such steps within its power as may be necessary for securing the objectives of the development plan. And 15.2, that the Chief Executive of a Planning Authority shall, not more than 2 years after the making of a development plan, give a report to the members of the authority on the progress achieved in securing the objectives referred to in subsection 1. So the Fingal Development Plan 2023 to 2029 was made by the elected members on the 22nd of February 2023 and came into effect 4 weeks later on the 5th of April 2023. The development plan was accompanied by a number of environmental assessments, including a strategic environmental assessment, SEA, in accordance with Directive 2001/42/EC. In terms of the structure of the report that you've been furnished with, it's broken down into chapter headings, each containing a table of objectives and commentary as to the status and the progress made in achieving each of these objectives. Delivery of specific objectives may be reoccurring, such as in instances where a policy objective is delivered through a development management process. And in your report, you'll see that these are referred to as progress through the development management process. Each chapter commences with a short introduction setting out the range of projects and programmes of work undertaken by the local authority, either by itself or in conjunction with other state agencies over the 2-year period since the adoption of the development plan. The SEA monitoring was also included, and we undertook a review of the monitoring programme and set out and a set of indicators and targets based on the strategic environmental objectives set out in the SEA. And in summary, no significant negative effects on the environment as a result of the implementation of the plan have been indicated, and no remedial action is necessary. So just briefly how it appears in the report that you've received, it will set out each chapter broken down as per the development plan and in the same sequence. A brief preamble then in terms of the projects, the main projects that have been delivered and programmes over this time frame, and then you'll see a table of the objectives set out in the plan and the progress in the right-hand column as to the progress that's been achieved to date. So thank you. That's the end of the presentation. If you have any questions.
Councillor O'Leary. Thank you. It's a very large report, 276 pages. If I haven't had time to go through it, I've skimmed through 80 pages. I'm just going to raise one item, and I raised it during the development plan process, and that's the 34 master plans, local area plans, and framework plans that are in the development plan. So we've 21% with some action on them, some completed. We've 79% to be commenced, not started, and we're 2 years into the process. So I'm concerned that these plans, a lot of them won't be done, or we'll be near the end of the development plan before they're done. I've no idea what amount of land or homes are involved. I know you're working on some of the bigger ones, but frankly, it's my view that you don't have enough resources to tackle that list, and that you need more resources, be it in the council, in the relevant department, or from outside the council, or both. And during the development plan process, I tried to put a timeline on it. I didn't get support in the room here to put a date on when these should be finished in years. And the council stuck with the idea that these will be all done during the lifetime of the development plan. We're looking at this, that's not going to happen. That's not even going to happen. And then we're heading into an urgency for housing, probably housing circa doubling, and we won't have these plans done. So I'm just raising the issue, and I think we need more resources and we need more urgency about doing these. And can someone tell me what are the next 3, be it local area plans, master plans or framework plans, one of each, to be done on this list? And I don't want to hear that master plans are non-statutory and they don't really matter. Yes, they do. If you make a planning application, this council will say the master plan hasn't been completed, and Bord Pornala will rule against you, saying we're waiting on the master plan, they won't give you permission. So anyway, I'm just trying to talk to this positively. Can we tackle it quicker? And what are the next 3, whatever they are, going to be done? Thank you.
Councillor Healy.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, I share Councillor O'Leary's concern. The report is something which I think we all need to go through in some detail. I respect the amount of work that the Planning Department has put into it, and I think it deserves our full consideration. And then with your involvement, you might consider an appropriate way for us to discuss it and engage on it. The issue of the outstanding LAPs and framework plans is certainly something that jumped out at me from it on a quick scan, and especially the fact that there isn't a timeline set out for the remaining plans. Are simply marked as not yet initiated. Looking at the legislation, one of the important bits in the legislation in section 95 is that the report where the report indicates that new or revised housing needs have been identified, the Chief Executive may recommend that this housing strategy be adjusted and the development plan be varied accordingly. And I'm not clear as to whether that's in the document or what's recommended in that regard. I am concerned that one local area plan, which was in the previous draft, which was removed, the objective to produce a local area plan was removed on the basis that a planning application had been made. And that planning application, if I understand correctly, has subsequently been withdrawn. And I think that's something we may wish to consider as well. Thank you.
Councillor Gearan.
Yeah, first of all, I actually spent a bit of time reading it, and I'd say well done to the planners. I think it's a lot of work has gone into it. And my interpretation, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the development plan is about developing the way we're going to live, and it's for all aspects, not just building. And I'm concerned, my only concern with the development plan is how some of it is, and I say this carefully, misinterpreted by our planners when it comes to making a decision. And the one that I particularly have in mind, which is not about building, but it's where we deprived the club of 700 permission for a all-weather pitch, because we interpreted a section of the development plan, and because 6 Brent geese flew over the pitch, we said, no, you can't have permission. Tens of thousands were spent by the particular club. They met all the requirements, and then the planners were still able to say, well, no, our interpretation is. And that's my only concern, is that we need to have some sort of benchmarking in there. Because the people in Holt last Friday were told, well, there's Brent geese, whereas report shows Brent geese don't go over football pitches and land on them because they're damaged and they're not good for foraging. Yes, they do go 300 metres up the road to the golf club, but after just writing out for a bit of additional information, we've now to go to the board, where we thought it would be residents would be appealing it to the board. The club find themselves in the envious position that because of the Brent geese, God bless them, and their droppings, 6 pieces of droppings was all that was found. And because the development plan says you have to do this, it's used as a decision. And that's where I would worry that our development plan can work against the quality of life for the 700 children. Maybe if we made them protected species, we'd have the pitch. I don't know. That's all I'd like to say. But thanks for all the work.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to mention the LAPs as well. I am concerned about the progress on them. We're already 2 years in, and we're not making sufficient progress, so that would say that we don't have sufficient staff working on them. We're in a situation in Baldoyle where the local area plan was allowed to expire. We're in a situation where there's planning permission for huge number of homes that are not been built. So we need to really get a handle on that in the housing crisis. The other thing I'm worried about is the vacant homes action plan. I know we mentioned on 3.3 about the dwellings at St. Etha's, Portran, being brought back into use, and that is very welcome. But there are, if anyone read the report, so about 14,500 vacant properties around Dublin, and I don't think we're getting to grip with them at all. I have a specific one that I'm going to keep harping on about, but it is just one that it's 4 years since I raised it, and the level of activity, it's just, the occasional email or piece of paper been moved around, but 4 years for one home to be brought back in, it's just not good enough. I think we absolutely need to be doing more on that. Thank you.
Councillor Walsh.
Yeah, thanks to the planning team. Thanks, Patricia, for the presentation. I appreciate there's a huge amount of work that has been done here. I suppose I would share concerns that other councillors have expressed about the number of master plans and framework plans to be completed. One of the few master plans that does have a timeline is the Old Schoolhouse Clonsilla, and that was to be completed within 2 years from the commencement of the development plan, which of course was April 23. I welcome the fact that the Clonsilla framework plan is out in public consultation and preparation has commenced on the master plan. But I suppose I would just note that the original idea was that the framework plan and the master plan were to be done in conjunction, and that the deadline, as it were, within the development plan for completion of the master plan is 2 years from April 2023, and it's now very challenging to see how that will be completed by April 23. So I'd just maybe like to get some clarification on that. I appreciate the Dart West and Royal Canal Greenway projects are mentioned, that it is complex. But it is extremely important that that master plan be brought forward in the short term for consideration by councillors. The Clonsilla framework plan essentially addresses one half of the Clonsilla area. The master plan is essential to addressing the south side of, or the south end of Clonsilla village, and the area around that. So just useful to get some clarification on that. And the other question I have is a more general one as to what is being done in relation to the number of the number of extant planning permissions which are in place, but where no activity is taking place and no housing has been built. Perhaps similar to Councillor Hopkins, but with a slightly different emphasis. I had a brief scan of the document. Didn't really see that.
Councillor
So
Walsh.
just appreciate some clarification of that. Thank you.
Councillor High.
Yeah, I just want to echo the point that Councillor Gearan was making, and I would agree with the points that he raised. I mean, obviously, no one wants anything to negatively impact Brent Geese, but it is true that they are a reason given for stopping all sorts of very important things, and this is a club who's put in 2 planning permissions now for a new Astro pitch, which is very much needed. I think it's very disappointing that it's been projected, even though I understand, obviously, I accept the planners have the expertise in that. But in terms of the development plan, I think we seriously do need to look at, there's areas that are going to have a huge increase in population, Howth being one of them, with a lot of apartments coming down the line. The sports facilities audit, which was promised at the end of last year, I'm confident when that comes out, it will show that there is a massive need for all-weather pitches. All-weather pitches are much more efficient than grass pitches. We live in a wet country. This is things that needs to be prioritised when Fingal are making these plans. So thank you.
Councillor Dockle.
Quick one. I had a few residents in the Knoll asking me when the Knoll master plan is due, or could you even give me an idea of where that is on the list? I know the last one was in, I think, 2010, and then there was an extension in 2016. So if you could give me a list of where the Knoll master plan sits on the list, that'd be great. Thanks.
Councillor O'Brien.
Thanks, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, similar to other members, I'm still kind of making my way through the report here. But I suppose I know that we had, I think it was five map-based zonings that were changed or removed as a result of the OPR recommendations. And I think at the last I heard, anyway, there was talk that we would be putting out a variation of the plan to deal with that. Like, what's the current status in terms of planned variations of the existing plan to deal with those and any other proposed variations? Thanks, Mayor.
I'll ask the Chief Planner and/or Mr. McAleese to come in.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, members, for your comments, and I'll have to go through your queries here now. Some of them are repeated, so just in terms of the programme of LAP's master plans and framework plans, there was a programme initially agreed with the members going back to summer 2023. This was based on multifactorial analysis of the plans, and there was an agreed programme of 8 plans, which I'm happy to circulate to all of the members. So these included Swords, LAP, Dunsink Local Area Plan, or Statutory Plan, Kilbarrack, Industrial Estate, the Old Schoolhouse, Clonsilla, Folkestown Little Framework Plan, Stephenstown Framework Plan, Flemington and Clonsilla Framework Plan. So of those, Clonsilla is on public consultation at the moment, concluding on Friday of this week. Flemington Local Area Plan was adopted by yourselves in December. Stephenstown and Folkestown Little Framework Plans have undertaken public consultation, and the CE's report is being prepared on submissions. The Old Schoolhouse Master Plan is being prepared, and as raised by Councillor Walsh, we will be going out in Q2 of 2025 in relation to that for public consultation. And it's just important to note that there's 2 very large statutory plans included as part of this programme. So there's the Swords Local Area Plan and the Dunsink Statutory Plan. They're quite significant land banks, a number of factors, varying levels of complication, I suppose, and numbers of issues to be factored in. So there's quite an amount of baseline work being done in relation to those. So in answer to your question, we're progressing quite swiftly through those list of 8, and we would hope to bring back and agree with yourselves on the next list of priority plans on conclusion of these. Excuse me. Councillor Healy, in relation to the programme of plans there, I hope I've addressed that, your query. In relation to section 95.3, the revised housing needs, so we would have undertaken a review of the core strategy and the housing strategy that was undertaken as part of the plan, based on a review of the census figures which have come out in the meantime, and also in terms of our delivery programme, which has seen us deliver sort of to be on track in terms of delivery of units over the life, the 2-year review period. Excuse me. In terms of the development plan being for all members of the community in all aspects, I would agree. It's very, very broad range of policies and objectives. Obviously, you can see the amount of input we've had from the various different divisions and departments across the council in answering the objectives. So if there's particular questions, I'm happy to come back to you on that, on particular objectives. In terms of a planning application for all weather pitches, I understand that the decision with respect to that has just issued, so again it would be in the appeal period, and it would be inappropriate for me to comment on that at this stage until it's through the appeal period. Councillor Hopkins, your query in relation to, again, the programme of plans, but also the vacant homes action plan. Again, we would have just touched on a high level in terms of that action plan, but again, I'm happy to take any queries you have on that and bring it to the attention of the appropriate personnel. In terms of sports facility audit, I think it's been undertaken by colleagues in different divisions, so you'll be updated on that. The Knoll Master Plan, again, we would agree that a new list of programmes and local area plans and framework plans and master plans at the conclusion of this set of framework plans. So we will come back on a timeline for that. In terms of variations to the development plan, obviously there has been no variations to date, but we are always reviewing, in terms of the need for variations to come out, and we will provide an update on that in due course as well. I hope I've covered everything.
Mr. Carroll.
Thank you. Just in relation to the vacant property, we have an active vacant homes team and derelict team across myself and Mr. Quinlan's departments. In relation to this specific home in Baldoyle, as with a lot of these types of problems, there's complex title issues with the property. They're being worked through. There's active engagement by the solicitors from the other side on that, and we're hopeful of getting progress on that. There's engagement on that. Once that's resolved, we would hope that that property will apply for the vacant derelict sites grant, which allows a vacant and derelict property to apply for a grant of up to €70,000 to fund the renovation of that property. So that's where we're proceeding with that property. It's slow, but once those legal issues are resolved, we'd hope to see faster progress on that.
Chief Executive.
Members, I just wanted to thank Patricia and Matthew for their work in relation to the development plan and the two-year progress report, and to acknowledge some of your questions about the resourcing of the planning department. It certainly is the case that we could do with better resourcing, but I just want to acknowledge the likes of Patricia, who has stepped into the role of senior planner, and you see how capable she is in terms of the report presented to members today. I would say a couple of things. The propensity for legal proceedings is definitely eating into our resources, and the time taken to defend those proceedings is considerable and rarely solves any problem. Bottom line is, you get to the end of the proceedings, there's a winner and loser, and ultimately it doesn't do a whole lot to fix the reason why the proceedings were taken in the first place. So just to acknowledge that they spend a lot of their time in dealing with those court proceedings, many of which came about as a result of from the development plan, but then more and more often with other decisions too. I know there was one planning application mentioned today and a decision, but I do have to acknowledge the fact that there are often, whatever the decision, there's generally somebody who opposes it and who accepts it. Very often that can be then brought back against the planning department. There is a strong planning regime in Ireland. There's the appeals process. That's the mechanism for dealing with decisions. And I just want to say I appreciate the forbearance of the planning department, as particularly where people take to the media in terms of maybe criticising, and very often unfairly criticising, the work of our planners. I know Mary Egan is working hard to recruit, and I'm certainly working hard at a national level to deal with the issue across the sector, to make sure there is adequate resourcing of planners and other experts within the council. And so just to finish off, I think it's a good, strong two-year progress report. It's only 2 years since we were sitting in the chamber for too many hours trying to develop what I think is a very strong development plan. So a lot achieved in the 2 years, of course more to do, but I think just in terms of Oliver's report earlier to the Finance Committee, you've seen the amount of development levies that come in 2024. We're probably still one of the largest housing deliverers in the country. Something has to be happening that's right, that's getting that housing delivery in Fingal, and I think that's a lot to do with the development plan you put in place, but also the work of the planning department. So thanks, members.
Councillor Geary.
If the Chief Executive could just clarify, I certainly wasn't going to the media with Holt Celtic. I hope that wasn't the case you were referring to. No,
No.
thank you.
So, are we a proposer for the Councillor Healy? No, Councillor Healy's to speak, sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I had suggested that when we've all had a chance to read it fully, that it would be useful to have some kind of a process whereby we engage with it. Now, maybe we should do that at the area committees, maybe also the SPC. But I think the fact that we've got a progress report on our development plan after 2 years is something which we do need to discuss in a bit more detail than we've managed.
So can we have a suggestion for before we approve it, we'd look to get some engagement? Is that what you're suggesting, Councillor Healy? So we can approve it, but we'd like to understand how we engage that afterwards and maybe look at how we can act on the report. Councillor Gearin. I'd like to hear the proposal to engage. Yeah.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, we'd welcome any questions from the members, and we can collate that and then bring it through the SPC if that was to everyone's.
Councillor O'Leary.
Are we formally approving this? Is that what we're doing?
Well, I haven't had a proposer and a seconder yet, but the intention is that we formally approve it.
I wish to abstain because I'm not happy.
Well, we're not at the response. We're not at the voting stage yet. So.
Well, I'm telling you, I wish to abstain when you do.
Sorry, Mr. McAleese. Councillor Healy.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just for clarity, I mean, one of the things I raised was the fact that we removed an objective for an LAP from our development plan on the basis of a planning application which was withdrawn in December 2024, so subsequent to our adoption and the coming to force of the plan. And that's something I would like to use the progress report as an opportunity to revisit. And I understand from looking at the legislation that it does give us that kind of an opportunity to look at things which maybe either in the meantime or due to implementation haven't been fixed. So I'm happy to note it today, but I'd like the discussion in relation to it to continue. And I think that probably has to be at both the area committees and the SPC if it's to be practical. Thank you.
Councillor Dennison.
Sorry, just following on from that, I was going to suggest that it be a headed item at the area committees over the next month or two.
Councillor Tormey.
Is there anything that says this has to be done this month? Is there a timeline within the legislation that says it has to be done? Or can it just be left, have the issues ironed out?
It's just a report presented. Okay, sorry. Yeah. Sorry, I just need clarifications of two different. So, first thing was that it is to be adopted, but that it just needs to be noted. So, I just need to be clear on that.
Yeah, today we're simply presenting a 2-year review to yourselves. So that's just the purposes of today. So, if you have any questions arising from that, what I was suggesting was that you would come back to us with any questions. We could collate them and then bring that back through the SPC.
Right, so I think that clarifies it, that it is to be noted rather than to be adopted, and apologies for the error on my part, should have clarified that with everybody involved beforehand. But I think it's raised some very important issues, and I think that it's open to us through the normal manner to use this report to bring motions or questions in relation to it, and we're just noting, so there's no support, opposition or indifference. Councillor Humphreys.
It's just a point of clarity. If this is going to be further discussed at the SPC, will the chair of the SPC invite the wider membership to attend? But then the issue becomes of submitting questions or even if motions can be generated off it through an SPC when, well, I certainly won't be a member of the SPC and the majority of people in this room aren't. So it's just a matter of the procedure for that, because the executive seemed to say that send the questions to them and they'd be addressed at the SPC, but the majority of us won't be at that meeting.
Yeah. So my view is that the procedures won't change for any mechanism. You can use any mechanism open to you, whether it's the local area committee, whether it's the full council, whether it's the SPC, whether it's emailing the Planning and Strategic Infrastructure Department directly for questions. And if there are, if there's a general motion for general discussion on any aspect or all aspects of it, it can be brought to the full council and we can discuss this progress report again. So I don't think there's any need for us to change in any terms of procedure. I hope is that clear? All right, so will we note that? Noted. Chief Executive's report, item number 25.
Members take the report as read. I just want to mention the work of our Ops department in relation to Storm Owen. We were quite fortunate in Fingal, but we did have some impact from it, with up to 300 trees having to be dealt with since that storm. But they reacted very quickly and had the county back in business on Friday evening. Just to acknowledge that not a lot of our colleagues in local government were not so lucky, and some are still feeling the impact. But I just want to acknowledge some of our crews who worked some of the weekends on behalf of other local authorities, try and help them steer through the difficulties they were facing. So really appreciate their work and the work of the director and our other staff in operations. And of course, Mary Egan leads the emergency team in the county. Just to acknowledge her work, there were some pockets, small pockets thankfully, that had to last several days without power, and we reacted to their needs as well when that was necessary. Happy to take questions on the rest of the report.
Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, and thanks a lot for the report. It's not really a question, it's just an observation. The C's report this week was 143 pages long. Now, I know it was, it's not always the case, but we had it at the same meeting as a 2-year update of the development plan, which is 276 pages long, and it's just impossible. And even the C's report on its own, because it's so long, it's very difficult to see all the information contained within it with the pictures and all. And I know it was requested by councillors previously, but I was just wondering, is there any way we could get the information to the councillors in a different format when we're not absolutely swamped with information? Does it all have to be in the same document? Could we get it at a different time? Because it's just not good governance to have all of that information a few days before the meeting in 143 pages.
Councillor Shovlin.
Wrong one. Yeah, thanks for the report. Just the Clonsilla framework plan is getting a lot of interest over our end, and I know this is something that Councillor Donnelly mentioned at our local area meeting about the council potentially looking at the 2 properties that are currently for sale in Clonsilla Village, and I do just want to air that here as well, because I think it would give us a lot of opportunities and potential to do even more in terms of the framework plan. Kellystown also mentioned in the Chief Executive report. I had a feeling that it was going to maybe commence in February. Again, I'm getting a lot of questions about it, and I would be curious to find out if that is the case, if it is starting in February. I also know Tradfest is mentioned in the Chief Executive's report. I was quite disappointed to see that there weren't more events really in the Dublin 15 end of Fingal, in particular. Some of the pubs that would have hosted events last year did not get the opportunity to host events this year, and I would like if they could be considered again for next year, because there are pubs over our side with a real rich trad history, and I'd like to see more events in Dublin 15 for next year. I think that's, oh yeah, the lining, the road markings I see have commenced as well. I always thought they had to take place in the summertime for some reason, but now that I know they have, are they kind of starting county-wide? Thank you.
Councillor Kitt.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks for the report. Just 2 items there I'm inquiring about. Coal Mine Recycling Centre, have they any agreement yet on extending the opening hours which is very important. It was brought to our local meeting there recently, so I'm looking for an update on that. And also for an update on Kellystown Cemetery as well. I mean, I'd like to know when it's going to start, because this has been on the agenda for a while, so just an update on that. And also I would like to agree with Councillor Shublin about Tradfest. Yeah, there was a lack of opportunity because in the area. Now, as I am a member of a GA club, we ran our own Tradfest, and which we ran very successfully, and we got immense support from the local area. So I think we should, in Dublin 15 next year, consider more of these taking part in the area, and I think it's a great idea, because it's dwelling on young people as well as old people, and that's what it's all about. Thank you.
Councillor O'Leary.
Thank you. Just want to ask the question again about the tenant in situ scheme. Has there been any communication from the Minister, the Department or the Government about restarting the scheme in Fingal, which is very important? When I was talking to Mayor Egan there already, but I'm anxious to see the new CRM system up and running, because I think we need to improve on the one we have. We've acknowledged that. When will that happen? I want to acknowledge the work during Storm Owen, Mary Daly and the team. And I have a question, I don't know if it applies to here, but as we all know, the west of Ireland got severely hit, and they have to review everything down there, and they have to look at the forest and the whole lot. So do we need to look at our tree strategy? Do we need to make certain areas near power lines safer? Do we need to review, I don't know what you call it now, but we call it the emergency plan team. There's a name on it, I forget it. But we've got an emergency plan group. Do we need to review our plan on foot of the severe weather, and more severe weather apparently going to hit us on a regular basis? And thank God we weren't hit too bad, but we were in some places. So I'm wondering about the trees in particular. Do we need to do some class of an audit or a quick look at the power lines to see that they're not going to be knocked out? Thank you.
Councillor Quinn.
Yeah, firstly, I just want to commend the operations team, Mary T and Mary Egan, and all of the staff that have dealt with the recent storm. I just want to raise one thing, or ask a question in relation to the tenant in situ scheme. There was the opportunity from the Minister last year, the previous Minister for Housing, of additional funding for the tenant in situ scheme. I'm just asking, did Fingal County Council avail of the extra additional funding, and can we publish how many houses are not being taken in and are not being expressed an interest in tenant in situ? Because I seem to raise a lot of cases recently around houses that had our landlords had expressed the tenant to avail of the tenant in situ scheme, and the same response is that for commercial reasons they're not open to discussing it. I'm just looking to see how many houses for commercial reasons were not considered. Thank you very much.
Councillor Butler.
Yeah, no, just delighted there to see the news of the food market in Swords Castle. That's absolutely brilliant. I know loads of councillors have raised that down through the years, so delighted to see that. Just to say, Stockton's Wing up and Donabate for the festival was absolutely brilliant, and great to see that venue being used. Really brilliant night. So yeah, great to see. I know councillors have said issues over Dublin 15, but great to see the spread of venues for that over here. Thanks a million with regards to the work after the storm. I know we lost our park runs on that Saturday, which was 100% understandable, but there was clear communication that came out, which was great, and you got us up and running for the junior park run on the Sunday morning, so that was fantastic. So I know there was more important work than that, but thank you very much.
Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the report. I've just one question. It's been about 7 months now since the council has lifted an abandoned vehicle. Is there a reason for that? Is there a delay in the system, or is it just taking longer to work through the alleged abandoned vehicles for them to be lifted? Thank you.
Just from my own point of view, as Mayor, on behalf, I think, of all of the members, I found, and I think we found the response from the council to particularly trees down and other difficulties to have been exceptional, and it is It is great to hear that we had people volunteering and helping out beyond the county boundaries, as you would expect in an emergency. So I just want to thank all of the staff and the council as a whole and management for that. Councillor Walsh, you're just a little late in, but I'll let you in.
Thanks, Mayor. Apologies, a little bit late there. Yeah, just a couple of quick things. Just want to agree with Councillor Shovlin about Tradfest. I know there was a Tradfest in the Castleknock Community Centre in Laura Lodge, but I suppose the Dublin 15 venues for it were very limited. So that's perhaps something we might address for next year. Also welcome the fact that the pedestrian cycle link at Granard Bridge is going ahead, and there's a very detailed report on that. It's good to see that. There is a note that there's no alterations proposed to existing junctions, which I'm sure is correct in terms of this report. But of course, the Dart West project does propose some changes to existing junctions. So just to say that. Thanks, Mayor.
Chief Executive.
Thanks, Mayor and members. To Councillor Donnelly's question about the length of the report, I suppose there's a lot of information there, some images of the storm coming up on the screen. I suppose I would take it, members should take it that it's a report that you can take your time over in the weeks after the council meeting and send in any questions that you have on it after the council meeting as well if any issues arise. We have looked at shortening it, and I'm not sure what the desire of the council is, whether you'd like to get all of the information or have an edited version, but we're open to both. I think we had been providing an edited version after the council meeting, but it was very time consuming, and the feedback we got was that it was an unnecessary additional piece of work. But again, happy to be guided by you, and we'll certainly look at making sure that it's as efficient as possible. But again, don't feel that you need to have it all considered before the council meeting. We're happy to take questions after the meeting itself. To Councillor Shovlin, a couple of things on the properties for sale. Obviously, we will look at every opportunity, but we do need to have a purpose in mind if we're going to consider a purchase, and indeed we also need to have a budget. So it's not possible for us to avail of every opportunity that comes on the market, but I'll certainly take a look at the ones you mentioned just to see if there's something we should consider. On Kellystown Graveyard, just some issues with clarifications from the contractor. We're trying to encourage them to get mobilised as quickly as possible within weeks, but I'll give you an update when we have certainty on that. And that covers Councillor Kitt's question on the same issue. On Tradfest, Mr. Quinlivan might come in, and just to thank the team for their work on Tradfest. It was a really good event, and I was surprised to see at Stockton's Wing in Donabate Community Centre that they were able to cater for 600 people. I know it was a really big event, and really pleased with its success. I understand a lot of the voluntary participation in Tradfest didn't happen this year. Maybe John might come in on that, and I think that meant or led to there being less venues, but we'd like to encourage that for next year for sure. Councillor Shovlin, road marking, I might ask Mary T to come in on that. On the Coolmine Recycling Centre, we're trying to mobilise as quickly as possible and get those longer opening hours in place. There's some IR issues that we have to deal with, including staffing, before that can be confirmed. On the tenant in situ, Councillor O'Leary and Councillor Quinn, we don't have an allocation for this year. We used our delegated sanction last year to good effect, so we maximised the number of properties that we're in a position to purchase. So we look forward to hearing from government in terms of what the allocation will be for 2025. In relation to the new CRM system, I might ask Mary Egan to come in on that. Councillor Butler, yeah, I think Storm Owen, we dealt with that well. To Councillor O'Leary's question about a review, yes, with any storm of that nature, it's important to review what worked well, what didn't work well, and maybe not to be too confident that we couldn't have a bigger impact in a future storm. So although it went well in Fingal, we learn from our colleagues in the sector and carry out a full review. We're probably further on than most in that we have a tree officer. I know there is an issue of ash dieback in the county, so we're going to have to tackle that. And the issue of power lines being impacted by trees, obviously something else that will have to be reviewed as well as being reviewed across the country. I think I might hand over to the rest of the team then for issues that I haven't dealt with. David, I think there was one for you there.
Just on the abandoned vehicles, obviously there's a process to go through with people when there's a vehicle that's reported to us as abandoned, and obviously we have to give them the opportunity to remove the vehicle if we find the owner. So if there's a particular incident that you can bring to my attention, I'll follow up with you, but the process is in place. We give people the opportunity to remove the vehicle before we get the contractor in place.
Just in relation to the attendance issue, as the Chief Executive said, we maximised our allocation last year in terms of funding and number of properties that we were sanctioned to purchase. In terms of tracking the ones that are in the pipeline or that are refused or don't end up being acquired by the council, we don't have those figures to hand at the moment. There wouldn't be a real reason for tracking those figures, but we can investigate that further. But in terms of specific details as to why individual properties aren't acquired, you're correct. We don't engage on that, given that it's a commercial transaction between ourselves and the property owner.
Thank you, Mayor. In relation to the CRM system, Councillor Leary, all of the issues have now been ironed out and we're ready to proceed, so we'll be making contact with councillors in the coming week in relation to the new system.
Councillor Shovlin, the Castleknock Community Centre and Driecht were the two main centres for the official Tradfest events. In regards to pubs, one of the things that we've been trying to do is to generate a kind of a fringe style where pubs will participate. We offer the opportunity to join in, get included on the official Tradfest programme. We offer them the bunting and the banners and all of the official colouring of the Tradfest. But one of the things we found this year was that there was an ask from a lot of the pubs who would have participated before for us to pay for the musicians, which wasn't something that we had provided budget for. And we felt that offering them the opportunity for the branding should have been enough to motivate them to actually join and participate. So if there was anybody out there who missed the opportunity to participate, they should contact us and we'll join in. But just be aware that many chose not to participate because there was that issue around the funding of the events. Sorry? The events unit.
Members, thanks very much, and thanks for your compliments with regards to the operations staff. But I want to extend my own thanks to my own teams in each area, and also the men themselves who go out and get out there and do the work and work. They worked Friday and they worked Saturday and into Sunday in getting all the trees cleared. However, we have a good system in place. Myself and Mary, the director for corporate, we attend the national emergency meeting. There would have been one every day, and then we would also then have our own internal meeting. So it has worked very well with regards to the previous storm, but we've had quite a number of storms over the last 12 months, and we have a good system in place. So listen, thank you all. I'll pass it on to all of the staff, but and they were gritting as well, so going out at 4 o'clock in the morning at the same time, it's really appreciated. With regards to, we have a tree strategy, we also have a tree officer who's been employed, and we do the inspections. We have a tree crews in the areas, and we do inspections. However, it's hard to get round to everything, so any help that the members of the public can give us, that would be great. we have the issue with the ash dieback as well, which is a major problem. With regards to Kellystown contractor, that tender is complete. Contractor has been appointed, and I understand architects are in discussion with the contractor. It's when do they actually go on site. Cool Mine Recycling Centre. Yes, we've met with the unions. I would be hoping to have the Cool Mine Recycling Centre opened for longer hours the end of May, with all of the staff in place. I think that's it. Oh, sorry, Councillor Chauvelin. We would do some road markings. It wouldn't be ideal to be doing road markings during the winter months because there's a lot of moisture in the air, and there's a lot of, I suppose, the roads are wet as well. However, if a particular road is dry and we need to do a road marking, we would do it. But it's not ideal during the winter. However, temperatures are quite high at the moment. So there would be some element of road markings done, but we generally leave them until the temperatures go up after April. So I think that's it from me. Thanks very much, members.
I would normally propose to open it up again. Before I bring you in, though, Councillor Quinn, is it something that can be taken offline, or does it need?
Just clarification on response.
Yeah.
Just looking for clarification. I'm delighted that we maximised our tenant in situ scheme, but was the opportunity taken from the offer from the Department of Housing for additional funding for the tenant in situ scheme? This offer was made by the Minister of Housing in the previous government. Thank you.
We were given a delegated sanction, and we used that up to the full. So whatever officially came to us as our sanction, we used that up as far as we could.
Sorry, we're not going to turn into a. Okay, last one. Yeah, I'll indulge you. Not at all.
Thank you very much. It's just that in response to our Sinn Féin's housing spokesman, Owner Bryn, from the then Minister Darragh O'Brien, additional funding was being made available by the government to local authorities that found themselves in a situation where there was an opportunity to avail. And I'm just looking for clarity. Was that applied for?
I think that's already been answered, Councillor Quinn. I think you're making a political point. They said that they availed of everything that was offered. All right, that's what they have said. So we note the Chief Executive's report. Noted. Great. Item number 26. That's my own business. So it's in relation to the WHO Intersectional Global Action Plan on Epilepsy and Other Neurological Conditions. So just to clarify a bit what this is, Ireland has already signed up to this through the EU. It's a 10-year plan. Sorry, I proposed. I need a seconder. Councillor Walsh, apologies. It's a plan basically to improve services for epilepsy and neurological conditions. So there's a couple of key pillars to it. And what we'll be doing here is writing to the Minister just to ask us, the department, to expedite what they've already agreed to do. So one of the key, I won't go through the whole detail of it, it's there on the Epilepsy Ireland site for you to have a look at. Just want to reassure it's something that's already committed to being done. And then, part of the key areas are implementing strategies for promotion and prevention, and providing effective, timely and responsive diagnosis, treatment and care. And one of the things that they're really looking for people to do as well is to understand what the first aid action that you should be looking to do if you come across somebody who's having a seizure. And it comes in under the 3 headings of time, safe and stay. So the time is time of seizure, see how long it lasts. If it lasts longer than 5 minutes, call an ambulance. Stay with the person, make sure that they're all right. And then, safe is you stay with somebody, make sure that they're all right. And then stay after the seizure to ensure that that people can be disorientated for a while, or you could have a secondary seizure. And one of the key pieces of advice is that if you're in doubt, call an ambulance, particularly call an ambulance if it's over 5 minutes or if there's any kind of an injury on it. So I would hope that we could have an agreement to pass the motion. I just wanted to make sure that everybody had a little bit of detail about why and what I was proposing. Motion agreed? Agreed. Item B, the Councillor B. McDonagh Action Ireland Trust Group, that this council invites the Action Ireland Trust Group working in Lesotho to a civic reception. I propose this to be a short reception after a council meeting, just to give people an idea what we're talking about. There's a group that provide wide and varied services within Lesotho, proposed seconder, Councillor O'Brien. So they're volunteers from across Fingal and wider. It includes planners, it includes emergency services people, it includes medical people, it includes teachers, educational, and it includes students. And we've had the ambassador for Lesotho here, and it has a huge impact. So I would ask for your indulgence and support. Councillor O'Brien.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, just very briefly, delighted to second the motion. I'm aware of a lot of the work that the Action Ireland Trust do, as you outlined, and it's fantastic. So I'm happy to second the motion and look forward to it. Thank you.
Motion agreed? Agreed. Thanks. Item number 27, conference report. These are for noting, yeah? Report A, Association of Irish Regions annual seminar taking place on the 5th to the 6th of February 2025 in the Radisson Blu Hotel. Noted. Item B, AILG elected members in person and webinar training programme 2025. Noted. Item C, AILG annual training conference 2025, 2nd and 3rd of April 2025, Limerick Strand Hotel, Ennis Road, Stone, Limerick. And D, the McGill Summer School 2025 will take place in Glenties on the 17th to 19th of July 2025. So they're a programme of conferences to which members may wish to attend. 28, correspondence. Item A, letter dated 15th of January 2025 from Clare County Council, re Older People's Grant. Noted. Item B, letter dated 15th of January 2025 from Clare County Council, read the GAA admission charge. Noted. Item C, letter dated 15th of January 2025 from Leitrim County Council to Taoiseach, read the diaspora. Noted. Item D, letter dated 17th of January 2025 from Roscommon County Council, re rural and urban isolation and loneliness. Noted. We've no ministerial correspondence, so motions and statutory functions. Item 30, Councillor Tormey, review the Fingal Citizen Charter. Seconded, Councillor O'Leary. Councillor Tormey.
Thank you very much, Mayor. The reason that I put this motion down, and I can't remember who it was, but it came up at the Howth Malahide Area Committee in relation to grass cutting. And the Howth Malahide area is the oldest population that we have within this county, and when you go around and you meet people knocking on doors, and you've got estates where it's predominantly people who moved in like the 60s, 70s, and they're all of an older generation now who did a huge amount to maintain grass areas outside of their homes but just aren't physically able to anymore. I think that we need to take into account that that is the situation, and that we need to be looking after areas that have a lot of older people in them and really stepping up to help maintain that area for them, because they are just not physically able to. And in the Citizens Charter now it says that you're supposed to look after the area outside of your house, and while that's fine for some people, it is a huge challenge for others. So I think that we need to be much more open to agreeing to mow grass areas outside of people's homes, or grass areas at the entrance to estates and stuff like that, because that may not have been on a list before because it was being done by people, but now it's just not possible anymore. So I think that really does need to be taken into consideration, and I hope members can support that. Thank you.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to thank Councillor Thormy for raising this. I raised it at the Howth Malahide Area Committee when we were doing our programme of works, and it's exactly for the reason Councillor Thormy mentioned, that in Howth Malahide we have the highest number of over 75s in the county. But it's not just older people, it's also the way people live now. I mean, yourself, Mayor, I'm sure, with young kids, people are, two parents are working typically, people are at the weekends, they're doing their, they're doing their shopping, they're catching up on the weekends, and they're coaching their kids' football teams or GA teams or whatever. So people are really busy, and they're paying property tax and paying management fees in a lot of cases as well. And places where people looked after before, they're just physically either not physically able, or they don't have time to take care of them. So we do need to factor this in, whether it's an additional budget in operations, but we cannot expect citizens to do this kind of work anymore. So we do need to budget for it sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mayor, and it's good to see the Citizen Charter being back on the agenda. So I've been raising, was raised last year, got a motion passed on it. I know I had discussions with the executive on it going back several years. I'm a bit perplexed by the response. This is a Citizens Charter. Anytime that I raised this, I was always under the illusion that any review process would be more of a public consultation phase. That would be an open form of engagement between the councillors, the executive, and the residents of Fingal. That the Citizens Charter is more of a kind of a social contract between ourselves and residents and the executive of what the role of local government is, how ourselves councillors, how the executive, and how the citizenry and residents kind of basically our founding kind of social contract that our legitimacy as local officials is built upon. So any review of this, I would much prefer, and I think it has to be through a public consultation rather than an internal review. Hopefully I kind of misread the report, and you can quite quickly correct me on that. Thank you.
Councillor Walsh.
Yeah, thanks to Councillor Tormey for bringing forward the motion. I think the review of the Citizen Charter is a good idea. It's good to find out that it's in progress. I suppose similar to Councillor Humphreys, I would have assumed there would be some form of public engagement process or public consultation as part of the review of the Citizens Charter. Maybe we could just get some indication on that. And just would agree with the points already made by Councillor Tormey and Councillor Hopkins that I suppose there are, there are people who've been very active in their communities. They've taken care of particular areas, perhaps over a long period. I suppose it certainly happens in Howth Malahide, not restricted to Howth Malahide either. And I think just those people are now elderly and they're unable to do the work they did previously. So that does need to be taken account of in the Citizens Charter. Now it may be that there are different options and different approaches that could be taken. It might be that the council might take on that work itself, or it might be able to work with tidy towns groups or residents associations to address it and give them greater support to do it. But certainly I think that needs to be addressed and debated. Thanks.
Councillor Gearan.
I'm delighted we're looking at the Citizens Charter. I don't agree with this. Come out and cut my grass, I'm getting old. I am old, but I'm responsible, and I'm responsible for upkeep where possibly I can. And if I can't, I don't think the local authority have the resources or the manpower to come out and cut the grass outside houses that they haven't cut for the last 15 or 20 years. And I just be very careful. Like, I have a lovely young couple moved in next door to me, around the back of a couple in their 40s, so we're going to cut my grass and not theirs. I don't think it's the responsibility of a local authority to do this sort of work within any housing estates, developments or whatever. And I think it's most older people or old people, you'll find their areas are some of the best kept. because they're able to do it and they enjoy doing it. So whilst I understand the intent, I as an older person with a bit of grass outside my house, I hope I never get to the stage where I'm relying on the local authority to come out and cut it for me. We don't have the resources for this. Thanks.
Mayor Egan.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. As we said, the Citizen Charter, we've started the review process. Look, we will have a public consultation element to it. In terms of the maintenance of the grass verges and all of the other maintenance issues that were brought up there, we will certainly have to consult with the Director of Operations in terms of her budget and what's realistic in terms of delivery there. But as we said, it's an ongoing process, and we will be back to you with the draft once complete. Thank you.
Councillor Tormey.
Is the Director of Operations going to come in on that, or I don't know? No.
It's not a. I don't think it's a more general point than that. So in relation to specific distribution of funds, I don't think I need to bring you in.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, no, look, I look forward to the review, and I'll do a submission in relation to it. And I think it is just really important that we do have compassion, for people, when we meet them and they are really, really struggling, and just trying to do our best to support them with that. Thank you.
Note the report.
No, we're agreeing the motion, no?
Same thing.
Agree the motion? Agreed. Item number 31 is deferred unless somebody has, Councillor unaware, is item 32, Councillor O'Brien, blue badge. Seconded, Councillor High. Councillor O'Brien.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I'll keep this as brief as possible. This issue was brought to my attention by a blue badge holder who happens to be a cancer patient, who on 2 separate occasions has been challenged by passers-by when she has used with her blue badge on display, when she has used a blue badge parking space. She brought it to my attention. As I said, one individual was quite aggressive with her. The lady herself only makes use of her blue badge when she's feeling particularly in a bad way post treatment. So it was something that has been quite upsetting for her. She drew my attention to certain local authorities over in the UK who use signage as described in the motion, and I think it would be something that this local authority could do to hopefully try and remind people that not all disabilities are visible, and that they should be mindful when somebody who is a legitimate holder of a blue badge uses a blue badge parking space. And we all know, and I'm sure anybody who's dealt with people who have gone through the application process for the blue badge, they're not just given out kind of very easily. It's quite a stringent process. So I think this will be a positive step by the local authority, but also just to serve as a reminder to people that if somebody has a blue badge, there's a reason they have a blue badge, and they're entitled to use the blue badge parking spaces. So I would just ask for the member support on the motion. Thanks, Mayor.
Councillor Gearan.
Compliment Councillor O'Brien for bringing this. I think if we can do this and it saves one person being approached and embarrassed or feeling they have to explain a disability, I think it would be well good. And I think it's a great opportunity for Fingal as local authority to take the lead in this matter. And I commend Councillor O'Brien for bringing it. Thanks.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, just to thank Councillor O'Brien for raising the issue. Just even raising the issue here in this public forum will hopefully educate some people. And yeah, I think the report doesn't really say that we're going to do this, and I think we should reconsider. Thank you.
Councillor Humphreys.
I commend the motion. I fully support the motion. I just would have one hesitation, and that any additional signage goes on the existing pole that's on the footpath, rather than installing a new pole to put up a new sign. Because our footpaths are being cleared with poles as it is, so I just want to make sure that's clear.
Councillor Hannafy.
Thank you. Now, I want to thank Councillor O'Brien for the motion. I commend it, and I really support it because it's a very good friend of mine who's in the exact same position, and a torrent of abuse that she received, and again a cancer, Lord have mercy on her, cancer victim. And thank you.
Councillor Mulligan.
Thanks. Just in terms of the report, it doesn't actually say yes or no, it just states, or am I missing something? It just states that what the bylaws say, but is it the case that within the statutory signage you could have an additional signage underneath saying it that's complementary to it, but doesn't impede on the statutory responsibility of the signage that's laid out in the traffic manual? Thank you.
From my own point of view, I'm happy to support the motion, but I can see the concern. If we look, it says that there's regulations that govern signage and what should be on the signage. The implication seems to be, and maybe get some clarification on it, that there isn't the room to adjust the signage, in which case it's something that needs to be changed at a regulatory matter, and we should be looking to road safety or NTA on it. But you know, the other thing I suppose the point is to make is that the badge travels with the user, and the user doesn't have to be the driver. And I'm aware of circumstances where people giving lifts to people who are severely who are qualified for a blue badge, coming back to take a car out, have been abused because the person who was entitled to the blue badge was not coming back in the car. And you know, nobody wants to see abuse of a blue badge, but there are many reasons where people can be accompanied with a blue badge and to come back for that reason. So I think it's commendable, and I would maybe ask the manager to comment.
Members, I sympathise, and it's not acceptable that people are rude, and it's not acceptable that we're here and we're talking about a sign because we're trying to accommodate people who are being rude to other people. It's very clear the Department of Transport, the regulatory signs are in place, and they're prescribed by the Minister for Transport. The disabled person's parking permit, the permit is issued that the disabled person has under Article 43 of the Signs Regulations of 1997 and 1998. Putting up other signage gets confusion. There's a lot of confusion. But the signs that are there are the correct signs which are prescribed by the Minister for Transport. However, there is a badge that people can get that they can put on the car that not all disabilities are visible. And that is something that is used in the UK. That is something that people, they can actually get a badge and put that on the car. But I've no plans at the moment to put up additional signage. What I have in place is the prescribed signage that's in place by the Minister for Transport.
If only we knew the Minister for Transport. Maybe Councillor O'Brien would like to come in.
I'm not sure if the what additional regulations have been issued since last Thursday week. But I will double check that. Yeah, look, I appreciate where the director is coming from, and I thank the members for their input. I'm certainly not proposing additional polls. You know, we have polls at pretty much all of our. I'm hopeful all of our blue badge spaces, because obviously that's where the sign, as illustrated in the report, should be posted. So I would suggest that, and I appreciate the comments from the director, but I would suggest that an additional sign to the effect here would not be, unless the director is going to tell me it would be illegal for us to do that, I think it's something that we as a local authority should take a lead on. And I think it's something that, as I said, would, and there's been a variety of kind of personal anecdotes here, or anecdotes from members who've experienced complaints around this issue. So I think we should go ahead and take the lead there. And if it gives comfort to people, blue badge holders who have had these negative experiences, well then I think it's something that should be well within our reach to do. So I would ask that the motion be agreed, Mayor. Thank you.
Is the motion agreed? Agreed. Motion is passed. Item 33, Councillors Donnelly, Hannafy, Quinn, Smith, Ethical Procurement Policy. Proposer? Seconded, Councillor Quinn. Councillor Donnelly. Oh.
There we go. Right, ethical procurement is a positive motive for councils when conducting commercial transactions and businesses. The purpose of this initiative is to ethically advance how councils across Ireland tender and who they are affiliated to, in accordance with international law obligations. This initiative will ensure that ethical procurement policies are in place as a framework to ensure that no council in Ireland will be able to financially aid businesses and companies investing, practicing, or complicit in human rights abuses when tendering for contracts. By adopting an ethical procurement policy, this council will be able to implement a process, albeit at council level, to exclude businesses and companies involved in human rights and international law violations when tendering bids. The initiative will ensure that international human rights principles and guidelines are being adhered to at a local level. Taking this approach will not create an atmosphere where councils are pressured into feeling that they are prosecutors of human rights violations or The Hague. Instead, councils will be rendering financial aid or assistance to tender bidders will not be complicit in human rights abuses. It is imperative to note that exclusion from tenders and contracts cannot be discriminatory on the grounds of geographical scope of activity, source and location, national identity or origin. An ethical procurement policy will clearly implement criteria in accordance with the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights, OECD Guidelines for Multinational Enterprises, and the Global Sullivan Principles of 1999. In doing this, criteria within a procurement policy will ensure the role of local authorities is not to be overwhelmed into determining human rights violators, but to ensure that during the tendering process, bidders are checked in accordance with the guiding principles. Companies deemed in breach of the guiding principles on human rights should be excluded from the tendering process as a policy objection, not because of the detail of their tendering bid. It's imperative that during the development of a Fingal County Council ethical procurement policy, Council seeks legal guidance in relation to the logistical detail of the policy being adopted and implemented in practice. And I'd just like to add, in light of the response that we received, 5 councils have adopted this motion: Limerick, Clare, Wicklow, Louth and Tipperary. Thank you.
Councillor Leddy.
Thank you. I was a little bit unsure about the purpose of this motion until Councillor Donnelly spoke. I'm a bit more clear about it now. I was going to sound a word of caution because I'm quite familiar with the public procurement process as is, and it's quite long and complicated and can cause significant delays with housing, for example. When I read this motion, I kind of thought we were looking at adding another layer of bureaucracy to the procurement process, which I don't think is probably the case, having heard Councillor Donnelly speak on it. But I would be interested in to hear what management have to say about this, particularly Mr. Carroll, about whether something like this would cause delays with the public procurement process. But if not, it's a good motion and perfectly happy to support it. Thanks.
Councillor Quinn.
Thank you. I call on this council to support this motion. Support for ethical procurement approach by this council will only enhance the progressive nature of this local authority when conducting commercial transactions in business. The purpose of this initiative is to ethically advance how we as a council tender in accordance with guidelines set out by the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment. The Department describes one of the guiding principles, along with the UN Guiding Principle on Business and Human Rights and Global Sullivan Principles in 1999. The OECD guidelines, multinational enterprises on responsible business conduct, as follows. As known as guidelines, are the most comprehensive government-backed international instrument for promoting responsible business conduct. They provide non-binding principles and standards for responsible business conduct in a global context, consistent with applicable laws and international recognised standards. The guidelines cover all major areas of business responsibility or ethics, including human rights, due diligence in the supply chain, disclosure, employment and industrial relations, environment and combating bribery and other forms of corruption, just to name a few. The adoption of these guidelines in 1976 and their subsequent updates reflect increased demand on business to follow principles and standards on responsible business conduct. The beginnings of this development can be dated back to the work of the International Labour Organization in the early 20th century. The adoption by the United Nations in 1948 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and as a progressive council on this island that cherishes the freedom of people, I believe that this can be reflected in how we as a local authority show leadership in responsible business conduct and demonstrate this. Please support the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I suppose, like most people, I hope, here tonight, I've been horrified over the last couple of years at the severity and the level of debt and destruction and ethnic cleansing that's occurring across the globe. This is now coupled with effective gaslighting of whole societies and communities. And as a parent seeing images of children being killed in war zones, it makes you feel incredibly powerless. But it begs the question to me if we really are powerless. We are a small country, but on a national scale, our impact has always been great. We've always punched well above our weight, and few nations have had that same level of impact. Small actions can have those ripple effects that accumulate to really make a difference, and as a council we are constantly airing our frustration at how local government powers are being eroded, but this motion for me perfectly represents an opportunity where we can make a meaningful difference and have a meaningful impact. Industry has to be forced into ethical practices, as history has shown us. The council has previously passed motions calling for the occupied territory bills to be passed immediately without delay, but we really don't need to wait for that to make some meaningful impact here. And through the guidelines of the procurement guidelines that my colleagues have already outlined. Finally, I suppose outside this building, one of the things that struck me when I became a councillor was the three flags, our tricolour, the Ukrainian flag and the national flags of Palestine. That's a lovely sentiment and it's incredibly symbolic, but it's completely hypocritical if we do not back that with actual meaningful action. So I would hope that people will support this motion tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Healy.
Thanks, Chair. And I'd like to thank the councillors for putting on the motion. I think this is very important, and I think it's good that we have the opportunity to push in the right direction, however small that opportunity is. As a council, we have the ability to do the necessary work and analysis, and I would take certainly the tone of the report kind of suggests that this is something in relation to which there's a gap at national policy level, and I don't think that's the case. We have a national plan on business and human rights. We have an Office of Government Procurement and a circular issued in 2019 on social and environmental aims and how they can be pursued through public procurement. And indeed, the website says that public bodies are encouraged to engage with the Office of Government Procurement to use frameworks which include relevant social and environmental considerations. So the suggestion in the report, this is something that DPRA has to go off and think about it because they haven't been working on it. I don't think that's accurate. I think the central government policy indicates a full openness, and it's up to us to take that opportunity. And I very much support the motion. I hope we will take the opportunity to implement a rights-based ethical procurement policy. Thank you.
Councillor Hannafy.
Thank you, and I want to echo everything my colleagues have said, and as well, by supporting this motion, we can morally advance on how Fingal tender and those they are affiliated to in accordance with international law, obligations and principles. We will be ensuring the objectives of the Organisation of Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, and the Global Sullivan Principles. I'll quote just a little. To show respect and support for human rights by treating employees, the communities where operations are conducted and clients are fairly and rightfully to offer employees equal opportunities for investment and advancement. To support for universal human rights for employees, the communities with which they operate and the parties with whom they do business. Making morally sound choices and conducting businesses in an honest, fair and transparent manner. Actually, these guidelines are something that we should be practicing on our own personal level, community and working level. And again, I'm asking you to support the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Birchall.
Yeah, support the motion, and thanks for bringing it forward. Yeah, we're using IT equipment in this chamber, manufactured by corporations who are complicit in the subjugation of the Palestinian people. There's a company on the main street in Swords, air transport company, who are involved in transporting munitions to Israel to murder Palestinians. So, we've complicit corporations all around us who are profiting from, colossal crimes against humanity. And if anything can be done to make them pay for their role in this obscenity, then that is to be welcomed. We've seen ordinary people boycotting some of the worst corporations who look to profit from the genocide. I'm talking about McDonald's and Starbucks in particular. There's been mass boycotts. Their profits have been hit to a significant degree by ordinary people taking action themselves. And I'd like to see, democratic chambers and the institutions of the state follow the lead that has been set by ordinary people to make capitalism and the agents of capitalism pay for what they're doing to a defence of the civilian population. So, yeah, thanks to the councillors for tabling the motion, and I fully support it.
Councillor Gearan.
Yeah, just going back to some of the contributions, and particularly from the Sinn Féin councillors, and I'm just speaking ad libbing here, but I don't think that regardless of any motion, us flying the Palestinian flag, tricolour flag and the Ukrainian flag outside will be seen by anybody as being hypocritical. It's something that we've done, and it's something that this council has done and has been most sincere and passionate about, and been supportive of those countries. When Councillor Birchall brought the motion for twinning, when we met the ambassador for Ukraine here, we don't have to prove our commitment to the people and to these people who are suffering. I just look and I say, yeah, of course we'll all support the motion, but what you've got to realise is what we're looking for is within our gift. It's not within the gift of Fingal to operate within a procurement system that's been set by anybody other than the government. So yes, I think to allow to get this motion passed and let the government know our position, but I think it should have been in one of the other motions and not something which is directly affecting sort of Fingal or locally. But I am supportive of it, but I think it's very important that regardless of the outcome of this motion, and I'm sure it will go through, far more people see the three flags, and far more people know that we are quite honest and that our integrity is not in doubt, and the support that we've given to these countries and people is not in doubt. Thanks, Mayor.
Councillor Mulligan.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks to the Sinn Féin team for bringing this forward. I completely agree with this motion. I know when we got the laptops and even the Bosch speakers and everything else that we're speaking into, as I currently speak, are all companies affiliated to a state which is inflicting a genocide on a neighbouring population. I think it's essential and integral that we use every appropriate step to procure goods and services in this country, in this county, in this locality in the most ethically way possible. And I think any motion or anything we can do as individuals, be it in our daily lives or as local councillors, to progress that initiative is a positive. Whether it results in the ultimate approval from the department or whatever happens, every step forward we take to make this issue heard is another day where the echo chamber of social media is going to lose, and we will one day hopefully get to a situation where states aren't allowed to inflict such violence, and corporations which provide them with profits are inflicted by this capitalism system. So yeah, no, I totally support the motion. Thanks very much.
From my own point of view, I absolutely support the motion, and while it may require, there are complexities around the law and around policy making at a national and even international level, that implementing particular policies can be more or less effective based on what you're tied into. I think absolutely we should be in a position where we're trying to adhere to the standards as much as we can and create a policy that adheres to those standards and introduces those standards. And if we hit obstacles that are imposed from elsewhere, then that draws attention to those obstacles, and we try other means to try and overcome them. So I support the motion.
Thanks. Yeah, just to, I suppose, clarify in relation to procurement legislation. So we operate under EU and EU laws transcribed into Irish law in relation to public procurement, so we can't operate around that. So the idea, the reply of the motion is that we'd forward this on to the Department of Public Expenditure. They're the ones who would have oversight in relation to the guidelines around it, and it does need a piece of work in relation to the 3 guiding principle documents that are mentioned in the motion, to overlay them against what's there at the moment and see if there are any gaps. There's none identified in the motion, and that's the most efficient and effective way forward. We can't, can't operate outside the law or potentially outside the law in relation to procurement. We need to make sure we're on sound footing, and that will put us on the footing we need to be on.
From the proposers, Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you. Apologies in advance, this is a little bit wordy. The EU Directive 2014 and National Procurement Law does allow for human rights compliance to be taken into account by Member States. This is evident in the response from the European Commission, where they state the 2014 public procurement directives allow contracting authorities to introduce social and ethical considerations in public procurement, including those related to human rights, due diligence and international supply chains. Under Public Procurement Directive 2014/24/EU, and according to the case law of the Court of Justice of the EU in this area, Member States remain free to adopt substantive public procurement provisions, provided that the principles of equal treatment and transparency are respected. This is outlined by the Office of Government Procurement in an information note. It is contracting authorities themselves that have the discretion to exclude economic operators for reasons including in the circumstances of grave professional misconduct, Regulation 58, number 8. The European Court of Justice interpreted grave professional misconduct as covering all wrongful conduct which has an impact on the professional credibility of the operator at issue, and not only the violations of ethical standards in the strict sense of the profession to which that operator belongs. Therefore, according to the court, the concept of grave misconduct must be understood broadly and can certainly cover human rights violations by an economic operator. We recognise there is a lack of guidance from EU and national level on using exclusions for human rights promotion. However, EU and national legislation does not exclude such an approach by any contracting authority, including local authorities. This is evident from the response from the European Commission Office of Government Procurement and European Case Law. So I would like the motion agreed, please.
Is the motion agreed? Agreed. Councillor Newman is not here, so unless...
Sorry, Chair. Councillor Newman asked me to note that he's happy to accept the report. Yeah, indeed.
I'll second.
I propose the motion.
I'll second the motion.
And happy to accept the report.
Report agreed. Agreed. Item 35, Councillors Butler, Murphy, Maguire, Government and European funding. Councillor Butler.
No, thank you, and thank you for the very comprehensive report. Yeah, I suppose as councillors we get fired out email lists from senators all the time, just the various grants, and we're always looking through them to see which counties have got them and which haven't. No, thank you for the report. You go through it in great detail. I suppose the questions I have is, I suppose, how do we find out about these opportunities and make sure we don't miss any? Like, is there a centralised list that comes out to us every month or whatever from the Oireachtas? And also regarding the European Union, it's grand having the experts in each particular team or division who know about, I suppose, the main ones, the main grants, I suppose, affiliated to their departments. I suppose I'm more thinking overall, I suppose, just to make sure there's not any that we're missing, if like the ad hoc ones that may pop up out of the Oireachtas or out of Brussels or the like, just how do we ensure that we don't miss them? And is there any benefit of having a kind of centralised team that could ensure that's not the case, and basically that we grab every penny that's available to us at both European and state level? Thank you.
Councillor O'Leary.
I'd like to support the motion. Attended the recent conference or training event a couple of days ago or last week, the Association of Irish Regions, where over a cup of tea I met the Brussels representative of 3 regional areas representing Fingal County Council. And the motion's very good. I've been sort of concerned about this for some time, that councils, in particular our council, because we don't have dedicated staff, and the director saying we have a group of staff, but a dedicated staff member to go chasing EU funds, basically. It's a huge area. It's massive. So it's my view that the Dublin councils should have their own perm rep out there, paid for by the 4 councillors. One perm rep to service, I don't know what number of councils, counties and councils, to do all that work. I don't think it's effective. However, anyway, the lady in question told me, whose name escapes me, said that there is a plan afoot to appoint a dedicated staff member to every council to go and chase EU funds. It hasn't emerged officially yet, but that's what she told me. And a former employee of this council just recently left, told me the same thing at the conference. I welcome the motion. I think it's great. I think we need to go and chase more money from EU. And 10 years ago, I was out there with Maura Gay and Quinn on a ministerial delegation, and she was begging us to make an application for funding to Horizon 2020 back to Ireland. There's buckets of money out there, and we're missing a good bit of it. So the motion's great and well done. Thank you.
Councillor Murphy.
Thanks, Chair. I think the report
says an awful lot in regard to how busy Fingal County officials are with regard to the work that we do and the work that we try to achieve. And we have a very ambitious capital programme. But that being said, when we do get, as Councillor Butler reiterated there, we get reports from Oireachtas members, from senators, showing us monies that are being collected in the regions. And I know at the moment we have an ORS funding. I don't know if it's going to be taken up. And that has to be looked at in a way that we make sure that we don't lose an opportunity. We had in 2023, I think, 16 million allocated to 69 projects. Not one of them was Fingal. We had an application in for funding for Breamore Castle to Fáilte Ireland for 10 million, and we didn't get granted any money. We didn't get anything. So this is where we question the expertise, and I'm not being disingenuous to the people who are working. I'm just saying that they're busy, very focused at what they're doing, but if we can support that more by looking at how we structure our positioning with regard to capturing more value, maybe we could do more. I'm looking at the timelines for delivering Breamore Castle. We're 35 years delivering it out. What's the delay? What's holding that back? So we have to really have a look at the opportunities that are out there. We spoke earlier about vacancy and dereliction. There's 150 million available nationally to de-risk and allows local authority to acquire property. And I know we've done some of it in Balbriggan and Fairplay under a different programme. But again, it goes back to, are we at the maximum with our staffing levels in order to maximise the potential of the council to do more? And that's really the essence of what we're trying to achieve here, and explore us in a way that's sensitive and respectful to the work that's already been done by the council officials. Thank you.
From my own point of view, I completely agree. I think if there's lots of people responsible for something, it can be more difficult in order to kind of deliver what you're looking at. So maybe the analysis has to be around how many funds are we getting, and I think there can be an element of a double-edged sword. I know in relation to some of the bodies that we're on, where it can be a long process. You can spend a lot of time and energy on it, but I think overall, I'd be far more comfortable if we had in-house expertise or dedicated expertise elsewhere, which was solely targeted with the objective of ensuring that we were tapping into the required funding, and that resource, that person, was coming to directors to try to identify projects that had already been developed that we could use that funding for, and then mechanisms to release it. If the bottleneck is internal staffing in terms of delivery of those projects, that's a different issue. But I fundamentally agree and will support the motion. I think it's an excellent motion, and it runs across many different kind of threads. Thanks.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, members. I suppose, members, it's important to point out that Fingal has been very successful in accessing funds across the full range of different funding schemes that are out there over the years, and there's a lot of good projects have won funding over the years. How do we find out about these? Generally by circular from government departments or through our networks to things like the committees of the regions and the permanent reps that are based in Brussels. I was aware that the representatives from the committee were coming to meet councillors, and we met with them ourselves. I suppose what we tried to do in the response is to give you, as members, a sense of how we're coming at this, how we deploy the expertise within the organisation, because a huge number of the opportunities that come are community-based applications. So the advice on developing those projects needs to come from experts within the particular field of the organisation, and that's why we're structured in the way that we are. But I suppose we've been developing, particularly around European funding, we've been developing our expertise in economic development over that, and a lot of the members here will have participated in some of the initiatives and projects that the economic development section have been involved in, particularly over the last 2 to 3 years. And
we've built a network across Europe of different partners and across different countries who have participated with us in projects and are willing to participate in more. And that's how you do it. You build your network around the funds and around Europe. As I said, we've met with the permanent reps from the Committee of the Regions, and we're developing the relationship there. The Economic Development section has worked with EMRA and with South East Region as well, where many of the European funds are channeled through. But there's also the national, where Environment or Climate Action, the NTA, the Community Department and the Local Development section with DRCD funds and RS funds are channeled, and we're building our network and our relationship. And look, we constantly review our structures and our staffing requirements, but developing the expertise in these areas is what we've been focusing on over the last number of years, building our experience, and we're confident that we're structured in a way at the moment that allows us to capitalise on those. Lists of successful applicants doesn't necessarily show the number of applicants, and we're not always successful with our applications, but that doesn't mean we haven't applied. And you know, if we've been unsuccessful, we do go through a review process to see how can we improve applications and work with communities who've maybe made applications as well to improve their capacity and build their capabilities around making those applications as well. So it is an ongoing process. We are learning and developing and building our experience, particularly on Europe. Involvement with Dublin-Belfast Economic Corridor as well, so there's shared island money and Peace Plus money that we can or may be able to access, and again, building our knowledge and our experience. I suppose the Economic Development section is at the forefront of accessing a lot of these funds, and where we come into that knowledge, we share it with colleagues, and we'll provide as much assistance as we can to make sure that we're capitalising on all of those funding schemes. So look, we will continue to build that, and we'll be accessing more funds over the coming years.
Councillor Butler.
Thank you. Listen, thank you for all the participants who spoke. Yeah, no, I'm happy to hear that. Yeah, I suppose the motion sets out kind of what we're obviously trying to achieve here. So, yeah, no, listen, thank you very much, and we're happy to accept the report.
Item number 36, Councillor Mulligan, independent noise monitoring of the North Runway departure flight paths. Seconded.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I'm looking for, given the increase in departures in the North Runway and the increase in the area, we're just looking for independent noise monitoring to be carried out independent of the DAA to verify, I suppose, the modelling, assess the impact on neighbouring communities, increase transparency and gather data for future planning. This is done essentially because at this moment in time there is only one additional noise monitoring station at New Park as part of the North Runway. The other ones are on the South Runway, so all the modelling data is done based on the South Runway's modelling, and we don't think that's good enough. Independent monitoring that has been done by residents already who live in the locality would suggest that they're getting up to 2 or 3 decibels more in their noise monitoring than what is being published by the DEA, and we just want transparency. Now, the report talks about cost. Costing is about 3,000 to 4,000 per location. It's not really excessive, and when you read the motion, it talks about 6 strategic locations, and it might sound like that's a bit vague, but actually, as part of the motion, I gave examples of background, context, and locations. That's not obviously accompanying the motion you see here today, but it was to try and inform the response so that there was a very well-intended motion. And I'm just looking for the members here to support the motion. I don't support the report. I do think that we need to understand that it talks about the conditions laid out. Fingal itself has already said that condition 10 of the North Runway is non-compliant. So we have in the past said that certain conditions are non-compliant. And when I'm asking for independent noise monitoring, if I was asking for us to impact the noise of Skerries Mills because of traffic and ask for a noise monitor there wouldn't be any ambiguity. It's just because I'm asking for the airport. It's just because of the location. If it was any other place in this county, the report wouldn't say anything of the sort. I'm not asking ANCA to be involved. I'm not asking the DA to be involved. I'm asking for independent noise monitoring in areas that are affected by noise, which are currently not being monitored to a sufficient standard, be it on the live web tracker or the quarterly reports. That's all I'm asking for, and I accept that there is a monetary figure attached to independent noise monitoring, but I think every member of this chamber will understand, based on the residents affected in their locality, that they'd be more than happy to support that in terms of the funding allocation needed for their local residents and the potential health impacts for the communities. So I hope the members can support me on it. Thanks a million.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to support the motion. All of us who have knocked on doors or spoken to residents in the area know the impact the noise has on the quality of people's lives. I'm just wondering, and this might be, this has just come into my head, it might be a bit left field, but in terms of the costs, covering the costs, obviously, could we ask the DAA? I mean, they're breaching their passenger caps, so they're making money off each additional passenger they have. Where does that money go? They're able to profit from breaching the law. So is there any capacity for us to get the DAA to pay for us to do independent noise monitoring? Just a thought. Thank you.
Councillor Healy.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Chair, just or Mayor, just looking at the motion and the report, it does strike me that there's something in between not doing anything and duplicating the DAA's noise monitoring, and that is carrying out a validation or a verification exercise. And I think there are two things which it would be important to validate. The first is just the accuracy of the measurements that DAA is getting, especially if, as Councillor Mulligan suggests, some people, citizens have been getting different readings. And the second thing would be to validate the modelling, the kind of extrapolation that the DAA does between the monitoring locations. So those two things could be validated and tested by a not very expensive campaign. I agree that we shouldn't be duplicating the work the DAA is doing, but we should be making sure that it's correct. And if there's any doubt in the community about its validity, then I think it's important that we address that directly and ensure that it is accurate data. Thank you.
Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Mayor. And I certainly would agree with Councillor Healy, because we are the noise monitoring authority, and some people seem to think, I'm not suggesting that's Councillor Mulligan, but obviously some citizens may feel that we're relying on information that's not reliable or not independent. Well, certainly I would have assumed it was independently done by the airport, that they have professionals in there to do it. And given that there's been an undertaking to provide a further 5 mobile monitors just last month, that should satisfy local communities, and we can move those around to places where they are needed and where citizens feel are not being adequately monitored. Some of those certainly would be in Dublin 15. But I'm just conscious that if we are the noise monitoring authority, then surely we have confidence in the monitoring that is being done for us.
Councillor Gearin.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be careful here. First of all, I have full confidence in the work that's been undertaken by ANCA in relation to this matter. Secondly, there can be confusion where some people are getting reports and are at the 2 and 3 decibels above, because a lot of the figures that are put up on the sites are average figures. But most importantly, it's not. I don't see why we shouldn't be stepping into the shoes of the DAA. And God knows we've enough ongoing issues with them, but I do believe that it's more appropriate that they do it. What we've done is because of the intervention in 2022, they've gone from, 7 to 25 monitors. I think the way to do it is that the legislation and their obligations is pointed out to them, and that's how we improve the gathering of the information. I don't believe it's something that we should get involved in unnecessarily in carrying out what is effectively a statutory duty of theirs as a result of the interventions from ANCA and the various plannings and that. I'd be careful before I go there. Thanks.
So I'd look to extend the meeting by 5 minutes to finish this item. Agreed? Just from my own point of view, I think Councillor Mulligan makes a very strong argument, as does Councillor Healy. But I also want to point out that, you know, there are plenty of things that the DAA does monitor from a safety point of view. And I would think and hope that the monitoring that is being done by the DAA, insofar as, you know, where it's taken and what, you know, that it is being accurately measured, notwithstanding any conflicts there are in relation to policies or anything else. However, I think the real difficulty with noise monitoring as opposed to anything else is that all of the other safety monitorings that are being done are generally in alignment with the objectives of the DAA. And the difficulty we have in relation to noise monitoring is that the objectives of the DAA are directly opposed and has, as stated, opposed to adherence to the WHO standards on noise. And so unfortunately we're in a position where where there is conflict around that. Let me also be very clear, this is not the fault of the DAA. I'm quite happy to call the DAA out and it's not the fault of ANCA, it's the fault of the legislation. The legislation which was introduced. And there were several difficulties with the legislation which we opposed at the time on that basis. And I think that hopefully we can get amended legislation, new legislation with the new government, new Minister for Transport, which will resolve the conflict around monitoring in particular, so that at least when we're talking about policy, we can all agree that the data has been independently collected from all the, take the politics out of the collection or the data that we're discussing. So on that basis, I'd be very happy to support Councillor Mulligan. The Manager.
It's me. Members, Dublin Airport is the noise mapping authority and must ensure that appropriate noise measuring systems are in place at the airport on an ongoing basis. The Airport Authority operates an extensive noise monitoring network around the airport, and this system tracks noise levels to understand the impact on nearby communities. As the members have mentioned, the increase in monitors have increased from 7 to 25. And most recently, there's a further 5 mobile monitors after being agreed at the local meeting with the residents on the 28th of January. The data is available real time on the DAA website, and also DAA website are quarterly noise and flight tracking monitoring reports, and there's other information available in the report. The network of monitors remains under review through the implementation of the Noise Action Plan. Currently at the moment there's no justification for the Council to expend significant resources to duplicate the airport's monitoring network, and there's currently no budget in the 2025 allocation. Thank you.
Councillor Mulligan.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, members, for your feedback. Firstly, I just want to say that I concur, Mayor, in regards to the DAA and ANCA's responsibility. I was with you in the Dáil on the 19th of February 2019 when the legislation was passed by the then Minister for Transport, and ultimately has led us to the situation we are now. But although it's ANCA's responsibility to oversee it, they haven't overseen any validation of the models that are already there. There has been no validation of the current models that are there, and it has been asked for time and time and time again. And it's also important to note that all of ANCA's costs are covered by the DAA. So at what point, when the community have been asking for years, prior to the North Runway even becoming operational, we need to validate this data. We need to get more data. We have one additional noise monitoring station, not 5 added. The one noise monitoring station for the North Runway is at New Park. There is no other ones. They are all the other ones are the South Runway noise monitoring stations that are there, and as we've mentioned, they've increased. So what I'm saying in this motion is that we need additional noise monitoring to validate the already models that we are aware of, to validate them and ensure their reliability in 6 strategic locations on the North Runway flight path, which have not and do not have noise modelling done for those areas. We have models done based on predictions from the south, which aren't collecting the same data, aren't live, and aren't traceable on a quarterly or live report anywhere because they don't exist. So I do think there is scope, and I would like to think there is scope for this to be looked at, and I think we should do it independently, because to say that we haven't exhausted other options would be untrue. Thank you, and I hope the members can support the motion. Thank you.
Is the motion agreed? Agreed. Thanks. Is there anybody else looking to accept a report? Proposer is seconder for that? Second. Anybody else? Any other motions? Thank you very much.